Welcome to another episode of By the Numbers, the quintessential Counterstrike podcast. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. Joining me as he always does, my co-host, Duncan Thorin-Shields, the esports historian. We've got Sammy Boy pressing the buttons. How are you doing, Sam? You good?
All right, yeah. I got a toothache, actually, mate. It's not great. That's a lie. I just lied you first.
Oh, yeah, you did. You did say about that toothache. Yeah. Mate, something happened to me as well. Because I got like an ulcer. Right, sometimes, I've told you about this. The acid comes up and goes into my throat. And that happened the other day, and it was fucking bad, mate. I sounded like I was like Chaz and Dave or something, you know what I mean? So I'm a bit under the weather myself, but I'm going to power through. Duncan, for appearances, I know you're always fine, mate. You're always 100.
I'm pretty much the same every time, yeah.
Yeah, always, whatever. So, before we get into it, I mean, because there's so much fucking news and whatnot to get into.
Oh, there was some juicy stuff in the last 24 hours alone, wasn't there? Yeah.
They did us a massive favour. All those orgs that we shit on, week in, week out, they were like, right, by the numbers, when is it? All right, okay, we'll make all our roster moves the day before. There you go.
Astralis even did us the good deed of losing the match before we could
yeah,
everything's
exactly.
lining up this time, mate.
And seemingly trouble in paradise with Nicola Lyholm tweeting out Bubsky should be playing. So not after
this
today.
Guy
like
is so what I love about him, by the way, unironically, because people are going to think this is sarcasm. No, if I just think of him as like a character in a TV show, he's hilarious. I hope he sticks around. Like you can't. Basically, one thing that's good about him is even though when he lies, it's totally predictable. He always has a creative twist to how he does get the lie out there, though. That's what I like about him.
That is true.
Like this angle, as we'll get to, is amazing. Like the idea he of all people. That's like that fucking I forget his name, but that's like that cunt who runs Newcastle. If he just did a tweet like,
"Oh, Mike Ashley, yeah,
I wish they'd get some bloody good players and stop selling all the good ones." It's like
it's you.
No one doing that. Who's doing it?
No, you know what? Like he's warmed because it's been a rough couple of weeks, and that warmed the cockle to my heart. That did. I'm starting to think that maybe he does have a sense of humor about himself.
Oh, I think he does, but I just think he doesn't have the self-awareness for like the ridiculous stuff, like a lot of them, you know. He can get, I think he gets a bit of it. Like he does, like he definitely tries with some of the sarcasm to get a little bit of it. But the problem with someone like that is when you are like as much of a narcissist as he is, you'll never fully be able to get the joke, will you? You have to sort of just pretend you do.
Yeah, and you know, like I say, we'll get into all of that later. But first, obviously, shout out to the sponsors of the show. The primary sponsor, of course, is .com. Been with them a long time. They're a great sponsor to have, and if you want to place bets on any of the esports events, we've got a ton coming up now. You go over, you go to .com/RLS, or if you're watching this on YouTube, beepknees.com. You go over there, you create an account, and make sure you're over 18. And obviously, if you are placing bets, bet responsibly and don't end up down some fucked up rabbit hole like NA Counterstrike. Also, as well, VPN sponsor, NordVPN. If you want 70% off a VPN, go to nordvpn.com/RLS. Definitely a good thing to have these days is a VPN. You know, loads of reasons to have one. Anyway, as always, we have to start the show with petty grievances.
By the way, what I would have done if this was like a Thorin's Thoughts video, because you know how I do, man, I like weave the sponsor thing into the theme. I'd have done something. I'd have gone and looked on one of your sponsors. I don't know if it's NordVPN. I'd have found one where there was some way I could crowbar in. So that's 3 simple clicks. And then, you know, I'd do something angle like that to like lead into the angle that we're obviously just going to go about 3 clicks, Phillips, or whatever, you know.
I don't want to labour too much of what's going on. I prepared a little bit of a sort of a outline of a statement monologue type thing, if you'll indulge me, because I had to collect all my thoughts because it was a bit weird. Because so for those that don't know, I ended up embroiled in we, I suppose, but mostly me. But he even said I'm worse than you, mate. So that's the first. That's a first. But anyway, I ended up in some weird fucked up drama with a very popular YouTuber, 3 Clicks Philip, or as I now call him, 3 Videos Philip. And I'm not going to denigrate his work because his work is still his work. You know, like I'm not that tilted by it. I think everyone will move on after this. I think the combination of lockdown brain and everything, it's like every drama that comes along seems hyper significant. But anyway, basically, the long and the short of it was, we, on episode 149 or 148, I can't remember which one it was now, it was a while ago, we made fun of, like, we made light, I should say, of an interview we did with Henry G, just because of the way he presented it. We said it sounded like one of those paid PR promotions you have when you're a politician. We obviously acknowledged that it couldn't have been that, because he would have had to disclose it. And obviously, I know Henry anyway, so you know, it was never, we were never under any illusions. I think we had some mild banter segueing out about, you told an anecdote about how he talks like that in real life, which, by the way, a lot of people said that was going too far. And I don't know if it's like a misunderstanding in terms of if he doesn't understand the tone of the podcast, because
why is he watching By the Numbers if that's a harsh joke? Dude, we call people rats and say they're fucking ugly, or this guy's a sex god. Like, if that's like, mate, this is the problem I have, right? I'm sick in the modern day of people trying to cancel things they don't consume. Like, imagine me going, right, sure, I'm going to get this fucking, like, I don't know, I'll make up a random, like, baby formula company put out of business. Do you buy baby formula? No, of course not. What would the point be then? Like, why would I even have a concern? So, like, one problem I have with that is, right, I get it if someone was, like, a massive dedicated fan of the show, and they were like, look, I like all the rest, but that went over the line. If someone just comes in and they don't watch the show, like, well, you have no fucking ground rules, do you? Like, the whole show's like that. It's bad about the CSC. That's what our podcast is.
And let's also be real, and this is something that we'll touch upon in a sec. Obviously, the big issue these days is just fucking Twitter. Everyone thinks Twitter's the most important thing in the world. People think Twitter's a window into your soul and your personality, and you can judge everything about someone based on Twitter. So, look, is what I want to kind of say about the whole thing. So, right, I'll try and make it as succinct as possible. But basically, I think it's like a really silly drama. I basically believe that the videos that he made were kind of underlying that because we'd implied something he didn't like, he came back with a counter implication that we lack integrity. The reason I think that is because of the title. The reason I think that is because he continuously talked about how people misinterpreted him. Well, if people misinterpret you, that's not about your integrity. And then he did have a little slide dig at you at the end. And then he made another video and sort of had a little couple of shots at me talking about my Twitter. And then obviously the third video where, you know, he's completely gone off the deep end. When these dramas occur, right, what you have to remember is if you're an influencer and a YouTuber, you're up here, right? You're up here. What I do, I'm down here. I'm absolute rock bottom, right? Like everyone hates me. But when you're a YouTuber and an influencer, and this is why I don't consider it a controversial statement to say that someone's manipulating an audience or whatever, that's the game. It's one big popularity contest being a YouTuber or an influencer. That's why they all have the same set of rules, right? You stay out of politics. They say, oh, no good can come of that. You know, you don't express opinions on things that are divisive, like religion or whatever. And so for the most part, a YouTuber or an influencer essentially panders to their audience, and it works. Yet me, right, I'm always going to be universally despised for what I do. Forget the fact that as a columnist, I'm a guy who'll push back on a lazy narrative. So, like, your favorite player, I'm the guy who says that they're washed up and it's time for them to retire. Your favorite team, I say they need to make changes. And I'll tell you uncomfortable truths about why your favorite personality might just be a cunt. And this isn't even the worst of it. You know, that stuff I don't even consider to be stuff that generates the most hate. You know, I saw a lot of 200 IQ Redditors say, if everywhere you go, it smells like shit, then you should check under your shoes. But it will always smell like shit under my shoes because my job is to stamp on turds. And so it's just as well I don't care about popularity contests and I don't get too offended by being despised because it's just how it is. If I cared about popularity, I couldn't do what I do and have been doing it for so long. I won't give people the complete history lesson, but we'll just do the last 8 years, yeah? In 2013, I called out all of StarCraft's favorite organizations and personalities for failing to deliver on multiple promotions like Pizza GG, all the crowdsourced funding documentaries that never got finished, like Sons of StarCraft.
Some of them still never got done.
Yeah, so I was absolutely universally hated and despised for that. I had about 3,000 followers on Twitter, and imagine telling an entire scene, all the people you love are fucking liars and cunts. Then in 2014, obviously League of Legends was on the come up. I was the first ever journalist to get an LCS contract. I had it legally analysed, helping loads of players, but because I'd spoken out publicly multiple times about Riot Games, I was despised for that. I was biased for that, so everyone hated me. In 2015, I told everyone in North American CS that their favorite players were match fixers, and I was called a liar by even my friends in public, attacked, threatened, DDoSed, doxed, hacked, and I was right. In 2016, I took on Phantom Lord, case opening sites, got called a liar by almost everyone for that. But in the end, the work that I did there actually helped in usher in better protections. Then I did a little something for myself and joined E-League. But still, while I did that, I stipulated in my contract I want to keep my YouTube channel going. And if you go look at what I did in 2017, I took on a variety of scammers and skin sites and games developers and all of this. Then in 2018, I took on the Overwatch League. I managed to get their hidden rule book that no other journalist could ever have got. What was the reward for that? I got told I made it up. I got told it was out of date. I got told that was lies. I got, all of this stuff. I wrote about an esports organization that had illicit funding, potential mob ties. Someone actually got kidnapped. None of you read that story, though, did you? And that year was the same year threats got so bad, that's when famously I had to have a bodyguard for the CS Major. So I'm still here after all of that. Still calling out consumer rights issues, still talking about China. You don't see a lot of people doing that in esports, do you? And I'm about to expose widespread match fixing in CS. And you know what's going to happen when that drops? Everyone's going to say I'm a liar and made it up, or everyone knew this and you don't have any inside info. So you can't do that and be liked. And I don't do it to be liked. I do it because it's right, which is why it's funny. The thing you're attacking me on is my integrity. It's what I believe. And you're going to be hated for it anyway. Now, when a YouTuber comes along and says, oh, you didn't like my interview, or, your tweets are bad, like, give me your fucking break, mate. It's like, I nearly broke my jaw from fucking yawning. Do you know how many years I've been hearing this for? Let's just sum up Twitter as well. If all of that work that I've done, and that doesn't even include all the stuff I've done personal, like taking players in when they've been on the streets, or getting players out of bad situations, or paying for lawyers to read over other players' contracts, all these anecdotes are out there if you want to find them. Let's just talk about Twitter. My tweets do not violate Twitter's TOS, and this has been proven repeatedly, including the last few days when everyone mass reported the account, only to get told, sorry, he's not breaking any of our rules. And yet, due to some imaginary rules created by stans and lunatics, apparently it's my greatest crime. He tweeted something I didn't like, and then when I called him a cunt, he blocked me after it. And that was literally on the 3,000 comments that came up as on Reddit. We'll just go with the Reddit comments. 90% of that was that. No exaggeration, right? People were saying I offer no value to the scene. It's often by people who've been in it for 5 minutes and don't know my history. And because social media and the pandemic has just driven everyone hyper mentally ill to the point where they think Twitter is a literal window into your soul. Now, the only time I tweet is when I have content to put out there, or when I'm taking a shit, or when I'm hungover, or just before I go to bed. It's an internet forum. It's for shit posting. That's all there is to it. If you think it's more important than that, that's on you, not me. So I want to just wrap it up by saying, before the next part of 3 videos Philip's Netflix series drops, making people hate me is fucking easy. That is like shooting fish in a barrel. But after that 3rd video, people that are not under the spell or whatever fucked up parasocial relationship the average fan has these days, they can see what you did. And in that video, the mask did slip a little bit, didn't it? Because you can see that you hinted at making it so maybe I can't work Valve events because of bad tweets. Or they can see that you brought up my mother for absolutely no reason, apropos of nothing. They can see that you compared me to a drunken thug, aka a returning veteran you bothered in a pub for no reason. And they can see that and they don't like it. And what'll start happening is, right, it might only be 1 in 100 now see it, but those people will see it. And the more and more you keep going, eventually you'll end up saying the wrong thing. And I know because this has happened to me. So, like, for example, in that video, you invoke my mother's name. She literally just got out the hospital. So that one could have backfired very fucking badly because it was so serious. I had to sign the papers to execute her estate in case she died. So imagine if that video drops and I have to do a tweet about a personal tragedy. It definitely isn't worth it if you're somebody that's playing the popularity game and wants to be liked. But even if that doesn't happen, you will eventually bore your fans if all you talk about is Richard Lewis and Thorin. They want you to make content that they know and like you for.
So his brand.
Yeah, and not obsess over me. And the more and more you go, but look at him, look at his Twitter, we must get him, we must cancel him, look at his Twitter. The more and more it's just going to look like you've lost the plot. Remember, I'm already at rock bottom. So with each video you make, and the mask slipping a little bit more and more people will see it. And then you'll get more and more angry about it. And then you know what happens? You will become me. So the key difference between us is I'm happy being down here. I accepted being despised as the cost to do what I want to do. I don't think if you come down to my level, you'll like it down here very much. But I'm very comfortable with being despised by every community I associate with because it has been ever thus. And those are my thoughts on the whole fucking stupid drama.
All right, I've got a few. So I'll start with this. One thing that was completely ignored, but I actually understand why, because you'd have to basically have a little bit either of technical knowledge or you have to have worked in the industry, is people, whenever they talk about drama, you know this, Richard, they don't make any distinction between the medium that the drama took place in terms of understanding how the media informs how you put a message out there. So they'll take a tweet and act as though that was something you said to a person, or they'll take something you said and they'll act as though you wrote it. Now, the reason I specifically did the difference between writing something, saying something, and writing something like intentionally is because these are all totally different. How you express yourself will be completely different. So when people take a live podcast done free form where people don't know, we don't even plan the broad topics largely. We just look at what the big things that happen in the news are and then we see how we get there. All these are off the cuff, unprepared remarks that we're making, including responding to each other and what we're saying. This is in no context a scripted medium, but people do, as he did, take clips and start treating it as though I'd like published a fucking thesis on this topic and I'm to be held not only to the sentiment, which is by the way the only thing you should actually take from someone speaking live, but the fucking exact wording. You can have, dude, they'll do like Soviet show trial level like fucking in-depth, like, but you said this specific word though, you knew exactly what you were doing. Like, no, I didn't. I was speaking live off the cuff, you fucking idiot. I don't know how you will interpret that on your 500th viewing. Like, that's not a reasonable way to say it whatsoever. Meanwhile, by the way, to contrast that, when Richard got upset at the title of the video, that video isn't an off-the-cuff remark. He didn't just make a video and then go, in the end, I guess you could call the whole affair journalistic integrity. What he did was make a video, as far as I can tell, a scripted video. And at the end of the video, while uploading it to YouTube, he had to sit and think of his title. Now, you guys might think again, off the cuff, he made a title. That's not how YouTubers do it. Especially people with 1 million subs on their main channel. I think collectively he has like over 1.2 million subs across his channel. I don't know what the second clicks one has, but I'm assuming that must be up there. So he's got loads. People that good get that good by manipulating that fucking algorithm, which means the title, the thumbnail, the tags. So when they do that, right, they know what they're doing with that. Like, I know this because if people have seen my channel, you might know, haven't your titles changed, story? Yeah, because I used to be shit. I used to be the guy who would do an article. You know this, in text, I was the worst, mate. In 2009, I would publish an interview with Get Right. It would be called Interview with Get Right. And I thought, well, it says story as the byline, so that you would get right. They'll find out what's about in the. I didn't understand that the title sells it as well. So I actually even used to think naively back then, like a lot of you plebs, they did fucking clickbait.
Clickbait.
I was an idiot like everyone else.
No, I did the same thing. I did the same thing.
It's because until you know kind of like what the utility is, and let's face it, you initially encounter it from people who are doing clickbait, so it's easy to conflate the two. So basically, what I would say in that sense goes like this, right? When you make those titles, like that is essential to success on YouTube. So here's what people aren't going to understand. It's another concept that probably Three Clips Philip himself doesn't understand, because I know you implied on the first video you understand some things about UK journalism, but maybe he doesn't know this principle because it's from print journalism. It's the most famous template for how you do newspaper writing. It's called the pyramid theory. What you do is the title is the entire story in one sentence. Then the first paragraph is the whole story in one paragraph. Then the rest of the article is all the rest of the details. It's the whole story. Yeah. So the premise of this is where people get lost, and this is why it connects to this case. The premise of why you do that is because guess what? Not everyone who sees your newspaper reads the article. Some people walk by a stand, see the newspaper front page, and the headline is "Disgraced Prime Minister Found Dead." That's all they'll ever see. They'll never read your article. But from that, if you did the good job and you didn't lie, they actually got the basic facts. The disgraced Prime Minister was found dead. They've got it, right? There, if they only have 5 minutes in an airport, they read the first paragraph. They're going to get, on Monday, he was found dead in his home after, complaints were made about him. Now, they don't know all the details, they don't know all the specifics, they don't know what the comment would be, but they've got the story from that, right? The reason I bring this up, guys, is because that's another principle. So what happens to all the fans, hundreds of thousands of people who are Three Clips Philip fans, Clicks Philip in this case on that channel, who see that title, but don't click it, but go, Ooh, guess he was calling out Richard and Thorin. Now, that would be the assumption.
Exactly.
That would be the... And if you think he doesn't know that, either you're making some sort of a claim about his knowledge, or I would say his mental state that I wouldn't make, or I just think you don't know the industry. Because, as I say, we're in the world of content, and I know that is how it works. And there's a couple of other things that they're more minor. So, I was writing down a couple of notes while you were talking there, so we could just do it, like, get it knocked out the park. The other one I would say is this, right? In that third video... If you guys genuinely think he was a super nice guy who happened to make the first video, but not mad at all. By the way, he took some light-eyed banter and got really mad about it. Made a video, right? What are the odds that 2 videos later, less than 48 hours later, he posts a third video in which he says all of the things Richard accused and implied he said in the video? It doesn't make sense, guys. He didn't, by the way, do a come to Jesus Damascus turn in 48 hours. What happened was Richard nailed him so hard, he just thought, I'm going to speculate. Fuck it. If he's saying that anyway, yeah, gloves are off. Let's just throw some shots back. Because what's sad, here's the analogy. Let's say someone came, and they've done this to me many times, and they go, you just say all sexist remarks. I don't go, no, I don't. But if you're going to say I do, here's what I think of women, and say, no! The whole premise is I'm never going to do the thing you're saying I'm doing that I don't do. It doesn't. It's not like fucking double indemnity. Like, well, now that they said it, I can just go ahead and do it. Like, what are you talking about? That's not how it works. So the fact is, guys, this is what your takeaway should actually be, in my opinion, from this scenario. You don't know how, because we don't know how. But we've dealt with so many fucking cunts in this industry that I'm not exaggerating. From an initial impression, the radar goes off already, guys. Something tells me there's a tingle about this. This isn't just someone making a joke. And you know what? Fucking hell, like the double lift and leaner thing. It's so convenient how it all turned out, isn't it? So the other thing I would say is this, right? Well, as Richard says, Cos 3 Cut Flips is an incredibly popular YouTuber, especially in contrast to us. We're nowhere near his sub count, right? Of course not. Another thing is this, right? The whole tone I didn't like about it was exactly what he exposed in the third video, where he absolutely, inarguably, thanked people who were sending rude messages to Richard. Because how did he do it? His get out was semantics. He just say thank you to the people abusing Richard Lewis. Same people, by the way. He just said the ones calling him out. Now, what he's done there is a massive red flag that he never was in good faith in the first video. Because here's what he actually did when he sent all those people and he thanked them for calling us out. As he said in that third video, the most alarming part of that to me, mate, aside from the fact where he dared to invoke your mother, as soon as I hear that word about tweets, consequences. So you're upset, Clicks Philip, that we can make comments on a podcast and there's no consequences. You're upset that we aren't called out. Here's the thing, brother. You don't need to be the police there. If people don't like our comments, they'll say it themselves. They don't need you to direct.
I mean, the idea we don't get called out, the idea we've never suffered any consequences. I mean, like, how many more times do I have to have someone like threaten to kill me, threaten to, like, when, you know, how many more times do I have to walk around an event with bodyguards for my own protection, you know?
Think about the consequences of this thing. Because we made a joke and then responded basically at a similar level to how this cunt was responding to us, we got literally, this is not an exaggeration, guys, I would guess around 10,000 comments worth of discussion either directly to us or about us on the internet for 3 days. 10,000 comments! Over fucking that, right? If that isn't consequences, because by the way, 3 Clicks Philip implied it isn't consequences, think logically, what does he mean? Because this is where it gets disturbing. His consequences, as far as I can tell, is what Richard said. It's at lightest, he wants us fired, some other people to fuck with us. Or I'll give you the dark one right now, but bearing in mind he's sending millions of subs over to us. Oh, the next consequence would be someone attack us publicly in person, maybe. You know, all sorts of things could happen. Who the fuck is this cunt to call for consequences over a light-hearted joke? What consequences? Like, this is one of the worst things ever, because this guy did the whole thing while pretending to be a nice guy, and because of the cult of personality. By the way, if people don't know, and I don't know what your speculation would be, but when I looked at the context of how his fans responded, dude, 99% of them don't even know who we are. Or they know us, like, very, very tangentially. But yeah, they're all commenting as though they follow us all the time. You know?
But you know, I'm used to that, you know, like, so many YouTubers have called me out. I mean, like, after the train wreck stuff, you can't even begin to imagine, like,
of course,
you know,
I'm sure live stream fails kills you for that as well. You know, that's the word. Yeah, it's like I said before about the Discord angle. Basically, I guess I was actually a boomer on that. It's not just Discord. That's like the manifestation of how I see it. But yeah, as you say, a mixture of famous influencers and like live stream fails means the worst thing now it's not even your fans who are attacking you. It's just anyone on the internet who goes, oh, today I'd like to shit on someone. Who are we shitting on today, boys? And then they go, check out this guy. And then they all dash to you like a fucking, like a moth to the flame. It's so stupid. It's so worthless to read these. Like, I'm not joking, right? I'm going to make like a random number here. I'd say 1 out of 30 people who commented on this, Richard, if you clicked their account, it was a brand new account or it had no profile picture or 0 followers and it had just been created just to harass us. Like, this is fucking so stupid, isn't it? Yeah. This whole thing. So think of Philip at the end. It's like I said on Twitter, think of this for a second, right? If he didn't want to send fans to do all that, and he didn't want any vitriol against us, he didn't want people calling us out and being rude to us, well, you know what? You wouldn't be able to fucking tell, would you? It looks as though that's exactly what he wanted. That is exactly the result that came from all of this. And just as a quick aside, I'd say one last thing, and it goes like this. If you're one of those people out there who goes, this is tearing me up, I'm a fan of all of you, but can't you just deal with it privately, or can't you just stop arguing? You have, I think, actually the worst parasocial relationship of anyone, because you actually think like we're your mum and dad, and that you can't live your life unless we're cool again. That's so mentally ill. I actually think even the hater who tells me to kill myself is less mentally ill than you. Because in this scenario, even though you have no idea what goes on in private, in this scenario, by the way, the other guy's calling us out in YouTube videos, but we're supposed to DM him privately. You're really, really ill. Understand that, right?
And what we'll do now is just to put a little neat bow on it.
I also don't particularly, by the way, have a massive grudge against the Flick. I think he's a fucking moron. I definitely wouldn't associate with him now, but I already did. Yeah. I didn't know his concept very much before. He seemed fine enough to me. As I said, he only met for 5 minutes.
That's what I mean.
I wouldn't associate with him now, but it's whatever in it now.
Yeah, that's what was so weird about the whole thing. It's like, you know, I don't get how it escalated to this outrageous degree, but whatever.
Mate, anyway, if even in the second video just said, you know what, actually, maybe I just didn't understand how these people would interpret it, and actually, you know what, I don't want any beef with them, so I apologise, and I'll try and reach out to them. If he did that, by the way, it would have been over. Yeah, I've always said this. People love to make out, like, because as you've said, it's one of the reasons I hate the esports talk people. I've said it before, mate, is because what they'll do is, like, literally, I'll give you a random example, right? Let's say Forrest woke up tomorrow and just did a tweet like, at Thorin, you're a fucking moron. And then I responded to him like, well, who the fuck are you? A washed up player who wasn't good for like 3 years. The esports talk headline would be like, Thorin attacks Forrest.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Well, to put a nice little bow on it, somebody did sort of show how things escalated in terms of it went from being this and then contradictory. They put it together in a video, which I'll leave here for posterity's sake. And then, you know, we'll either see if this continues on forever or whether it's just over now. I got accused of making this myself on a burner by multiple fans. Apparently, I made a Russian YouTube account 4 years ago, specifically for this moment, is the plausible theory. Yeah, why not? But anyway, just 3, 2, 1 it.
I don't want my viewers going to their channels to try and stir stuff up. And thank you to the members of the community who have called these people out for their behaviour. Richard and Thorin are both big. They have a large following and they use it to bully others.
Chef's kiss what that's like.
Not a single person attacked me in response to their By the Numbers episode, so please try to return the same level of respect. I can look past the bantery way that they said it and realise that there is something to what they're saying that I can try to learn from. From those guys, it was like I was being a paid shill to promote the team. This and my previous video, I did the sensible thing by not participating. I'm not mad, just disappointed. Much like you, I've been F5ing the page and scrolling down to find every comment of his that I can. Nice to see it backfiring on them for once, and to see them so quickly reaching for the victim card. Mr. Richard Lewis seems to have something against me. Only I can know that I didn't try to
the F5 and the backfiring part. I also was crying laughing there. It's like you had a truth serum, like accidentally
I do the exact
put in
same
his drink,
like genuinely nice.
I was mad as fuck.
Richard Lewis has reminded me very much of that angry drunk thug. Only Richard has been even less reasonable. Thank you for your concern, though it's Richard I'm more concerned about right now. In this video, I am calling into question Richard Lewis's integrity. What if somebody from Valve stumbles upon this? And just so you know, Thorin, you got off lightly. I've considered condensing your long, rambling videos down to just a few minutes in length for similar reason. I just haven't, because that would involve watching it in the first place. In his video, Thorin considers it a balance of the map pool as a whole, rather than of individual maps. He argues that since different professional teams have unique playstyles, balancing is more about having a variety of different map styles to choose from, and a fair way of picking them, so that each team can play to their strengths and to their opponent's weaknesses. I wouldn't even have imagined it from this perspective.
Thorin's arguments for one-sided maps made sense to me when I watched this video, but with hindsight, I don't see how the points don't also apply to balanced maps.
I didn't even know this guy. Like, I actually found out myself, like, what the fuck?
Because of this, ThinkFast has become a bit of a legend.
You can stop this bit. It's not really relevant. Anyway, there you go.
Oh, I had one last thing I want to actually bring up. I forgot. This is what, because the one thing this is actually
there was a bow on it. All right.
No, this isn't to do with clicks, Philip. Though it's actually more of like this is like a sort of generic point we talk about on petty grievances, but it just comes from that incident. I noticed another trend, right, which I've seen vaguely before, but this was the worst one I've ever seen of like this being repeated, like out of other people's mouths, which means it was parallel thinking. Did you notice this, Richard? Is when they go, look, we've all said that you did think that, so can you stop saying your thing and just admit already that you are wrong, right? I don't know if you guys know this, but you could literally stack the fucking population of China in 0-follower anime profile picture Twitter accounts, and I won't care what consensus they have and allow it to override what I actually think about what I've said on the internet. I just hope we're clear with that baseline, because that angle of like the idea that like, look, the group's met, we've done a vote on it, and we've all voted that you were mad because of that. So can you just accept it? It's like, who are you talking about? What on earth community angle are you trying to take there?
It's just because of the structure of how all of these dramas work. It goes like, right, somebody takes a swing, somebody has a swing back, community are all interested, someone has a swing back, and then generally by this point they're already starting to get bored. And then whoever sort of goes next, they go, can you stop now? Because I'm bored. I want to move on to the next drama because my fucking Zoomer, social media adult brain needs different stimulus. And you're going, yeah, but like, obviously there's still these other points to make. I've seen this happen so many times where it's like, it's not even the person who is correct at the end is the one that the community kind of walk away from respecting. It's like, at the end of the day, the only way they could have come out it positively wasn't by being right, wasn't by having evidence to prove they were right. It was simply by going, yeah, I'll just stop now, actually. It's gone on long enough. The Zoomers are bored. See you next time. And just have their reputation permanently impugned. That's what you're apparently supposed to do. I mean, I must have read that message. I don't know what, like, let's say, I'll be generous. Let's say 600 times. Why didn't you just admit Philip was in the right and leave it there? And you're like, what do you mean though? Like, I don't believe that. So now you're putting me in the same place where I have to say things I don't believe and pander to my audience to keep like subscribers, keep people following me, to not have threads made about me over the drama. By the way, across Reddit and HLTV, and this is just specifically me because obviously the third video targeted me specifically and not you. You know, there was like what at least 2 threads a day, I want to say, of just
the third journalistic integrity video was #1 on CSGO subreddit as far as I remember.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Which, by the way, shows exactly what your sub is about. You don't care about Counterstrike. That's not even esports related. You don't care about Counterstrike. You don't care about tactics. You don't care about entertainment. You just want drama. That's all the CSGO subreddit is.
Yeah, and no, but that's just all social media in general. It's like I'm not even like, so I'm definitely not pissed off at Phil because, like, you know, whatever. That third video was just fucking weird. And
it was funny as fuck.
And I think long term, he's going to come out. The more and more he goes, and I reckon there'll be another video. And the more and more it goes, it's like I said, like I'm already down here. People like would literally, if I go to a LAN event, I'll be attacked or spat on or whatever. You know, that's 100% guaranteed these days. You have to look at what I just came off the back of. Before that, the Rocket League drama, someone dared to hire me. Before that, the esports talk. Let's watch this man publicly grieve while fucked up with PTSD and use that for clicks. So and then before that, what was it? Oh, yeah, I think Blade shouldn't be Na'Vi coach anymore. Literal death threats from loads of angry Russians and Ukrainians, all in my mentions. Hundreds of that. People, again, they come to the YouTube channel, whatever the most popular video is, they dislike it. They fucking, you know, try and hack my socials. It's just, like, I had about 5 fan bases in 10 days just attack me to that degree. Like, I live in the shit. I'm like the cockroach. You know, like I have to be. It's the only way. It's the only way it works. So I think the more and more you take a swing, the more and more people don't like that. And then I wouldn't wish getting to this level on anyone. But it's just how I have to live to do my job. So whatever. But anyway, all of that said, I'm not even angry at the fans. Like, you know, the bottom line is, and this is definitely where we'll end it. those fans that are in a parasocial relationship with anyone that they get angry about us criticizing or saying anything about, right? Like, they're usually let's say, depending on the audience, they're between 13 and 20.
They're nearly always very
old.
mature, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so I know enough about life to know you're going to look back about how you were trying to impress a YouTuber who like doesn't know you exist, doesn't care, right? Like, you're just a number on a fucking spreadsheet, and you're going to look back on that and fucking cringe. Like, you are going to cringe. It's just, it affects me in the short term, but long term, you will have to remember that that's how you spent some of the best years of your life, that was important to you. And so that's why I never get too fucking angry about it. It's like, listen.
Oh, I will say, mate.
Listen, I get to be a grumpy old man now, but I would never have lived like how you're living in my prime years. I'd have been fucking thoroughly ashamed.
No, but that's also one reason why. This is where it's why I always tell the guys on my Discord, for example, when they get like too depressed over this, like, fuck, like humanity's just fucked. I'm like, it's not really though, mate. It's actually tech that's done this, mate. Like, if you don't know, it's why we say the internet and social media was a mistake. Because here's the problem. Even most of the morons tweeting me and Richard about this, like, you could even tell from their tweets, they didn't even know the basic facts or the order of the facts or who said what or even who some of the people in the story were. It's like there's someone who's a casual watcher of a soap opera just trying to pop in with their thoughts about, like, the characters. And it doesn't matter, they're totally off, or they don't know that happened in the last episode, or this never happened, or they've mixed up two characters. It doesn't matter. Like, they're just giving some stupid thought. The problem is the internet allows them to convey that thought into my brain. That's the issue. And so even though that guy just leaves his PC and probably goes about his life just a normal human being, the internet allowed him to facelessly contact someone, put a thought in their brain who he doesn't even fully acknowledge as a human. He thinks it's just a character he saw on a show somewhere. So that's why I always say it's the tech that's the problem. It isn't the person. Now, listen, that doesn't absolve the person entirely. Like, so basically the problem here, like we were just saying, is like, it just allows these people to actually do, like, they don't know how fucked up it is to be on the receiving end of that, basically.
Nobody.
Which I know is Philip. That's probably the worst part about his response to this, by the way. I'm not joking. Forget everything he said about Richard, his mother. Probably the worst part to me is that at the end of 3 videos, he still doesn't get the idea that, like, maybe it was fucked up to receive thousands of messages from my fans. He never got that part.
No, well, again, the narrative is that I definitely deserve it. You know, as I've read for over a decade, you know, I'm fair game. Use anything you want against me. Use my family against me. Use dead friends against me. You know, whatever. Like, I deserve it because I said that one thing 8 years ago about a team you like, or I said Overwatch is shit, or, you know, whatever it is. It's like, people will go to the ends of the earth to fuck with me. I mean, like, funny enough, there was a good thing that came out of this, and we'll leave it in the petty grievances section. Like, so Smoo, you got in touch with me.
I saw this.
The Rat King.
I don't know if you know what prompted this, Richie. He did it because of my tweet. The timing goes like this. Here's the timeline for people. When the 3rd video came out, the most egregious one, talking about Richard's mother. So, by the way, I even had to ask my own fans this, Richard. I even said to my fans, does anyone who's a fan of Richard as well know if Richard's mother is even alive? Because that needs to be established immediately. And luckily, they told me apparently she is, and like you talk to her or whatever. So that's cool. Yeah. But I even thought the same thing, mate. I thought, mate, I don't even know if his mother's like that. Chance is mental,
she's been sick lately, and obviously with COVID, it's been a pain in the ass.
Fair enough. But yeah, basically what happened is he just tweeted that video apropos of nothing. He didn't retweet it. He didn't, like, you know, tweet something like, no, he just tweeted that to his fans. Now, if you know the tip that Smoothie has been on recently, where basically he got super triggered about Richard saying he was cheating a long time ago, but Richard never did that. It's some sort of fucked up misunderstanding. So basically, right, when Smoothie did that, I just thought to myself, I ain't having this, mate. Because here's the thing, Smoothie, you have literally multiple times come and apologise to me, and every time you always say what all those dickheads say on Twitter, like, can you get Rich to unblock me? In this case, like, can you get Rich to hear my apology? Like, first of all, I'm not his fucking butler. I don't arrange his, like, I'm not his PA or something, you know.
We could arrange for that.
No. But, and so, I know, and it goes without saying, there's so many people want to be on, but we're not ever going to ever send those DMs to each other, by the way. That's never going to happen ever. It would be such a waste of time. I have enough respect for Rich. I wouldn't waste his fucking time. But if he blocked him, I'm sure there's a good reason why. That's the end of the story, really. So here's the problem, right? I got pissed off at this, mate, and I basically just straight called him out publicly. I just said, like, look, you fucking rap features, etc. Like, you obviously do. I just said, like, because here's the problem, mate. Smooya wanted to play the game, at least as far as I can tell, of like, I want to privately apologise and squash the beef, but then at any moment in the future, when I choose, I reignite the beef and I go right back to it. And then, because that's the problem with being young, because what you want to make it is like, I never really apologised anyway. It's like, I'm not doing that, mate. So I have a rule. You get one apology, so you'd given that in the past. Once you violate that, you're out for me. You don't get a second chance. It's baseball. It's not 3 strikes here, boy.
Well, he's never contradicted an apology to me. I think he always felt I was the worst of the two. It's a recurring theme. But basically, what happened was he hadn't watched the video and he retweeted it. And Smooya is obviously from a very similar part of the world to us. He's got a similar sort of set of values. He's also one of the things that I've always given him credit for. You know, we talked about it during the Epsilon time period. You know, he looks after his mother full time, and so when he actually listened to the video, he was like, "Oh fucking hell, what have I done?" So he like deleted the retweet and he tweeted it. He tweeted saying, "Oh, this is great, like this is a righteous takedown." He hadn't even watched it, and then he messaged me immediately and went like, "Oh, mate, not the mums, never the mums," you know. And so I was like, "Listen, bro, like we've probably been long overdue a chat anyway." And one of the great things about talking to people that you've like banged on in the past or criticized in the past is like getting that perspective. I'm not talking about what the plebs say, where it's like they tweet an insult at me, I block them, and they go, "You've created an echo chamber." You'll never say anything worth me listening to, right? But like, so you know, Smooya was talking about it, and he was like, "Listen, you know, 2 guys that have fucking been in the scene for ages, you know, working class lads, you know, got to the top, and there's me, a kid, and they're fucking wrecking me." And it's like, you know, it was easy for us. I know I do this. I forget sometimes when I'm talking about pros how young they are and how young people are in general these days compared to me and you. Like 16, I'm out on my ass, I'm on the streets, you know. So these days, kids at 20 are still having the fucking mothers come up the stairs with like golden fishies or whatever. You know, here you go, like Burnham Matthews.
What I always tell people is like society. I think some of it's engineered personally. It's like everyone's off by 10 years. There's a lag now. That's why your 30s are your 20s, because people are still acting like you're 20. And so when you're 20, you're really just a teenager. It's why I always say esports pros have got it the worst, because they not only have that, but they spent 6 years just on the video games. They didn't even socialize beyond that. So most of them, when they're like 19 years old or 20, just act like it was a 13-year-old kid and you'll probably be closer. I'm not joking. Yeah, it's even worse, by the way, because where I actually got this was from the Koreans. Because, mate, I always noticed that the Koreans who just literally sit on a PC 16 hours a day, dude, they have like the sense of humor of like a 10-year-old kid. Like they do like simple jokes that you're like, he's not serious, right? Because that's like the level they've been sort of like stagnated at for 10 years or something.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's easy for people like me and you. I know we get all the boomer jokes. It's not the age gap that's the problem. It's that things were very, very, like, culturally different.
Oh, for sure.
And, you know, I can't speak for you because I don't know much about it, but I didn't get much of a childhood. I had to grow up very quick to live the life I wasn't given a choice, you know. And so it's easy for me to forget when I'm talking about a 17, 18-year-old who plays a video game for a living, and I'm saying, and he fucked up and he's let his team down and he's done this. Very easy for me to forget that realistically, what I need to do in my mind is imagine I'm talking about a 12-year-old doing it and how I would and how I would make it different. Because, you know, when I've done Rocket League events, for example, because that's a much younger scene and you've got like high-level pros, you know, 15 years old playing in the top teams. All right.
I wasn't aware they were that young. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, like even legends, like, yeah, I think, you know, Justin, when he first came in, I think he was like fucking 15 when he first started playing top level Rocket League. So, you know, and even younger in some cases, 14-year-old pros playing games, you know, Rocket League, because obviously it's
it makes sense for the concept of the game. Yeah, I hadn't thought because all the esports games I'm used to, like the adult shit, aren't they? Yeah.
And so obviously, like, you know, you scale down the critique because you have to imagine.
Yes, of course.
How crushing it could be if they have a bad game. So you know, but what I've never done is really thought about it. Like, actually, a 17-year-old Counterstrike player is still pretty young, and I've tried to get better about it. But looking back, and I said this to Owen in person, I think probably in retrospect, the Rat King stuff's funny. You know, he even likes the nickname. He has a sub for him. We've given him an identity.
That is what you do, by the way. Lean into it. Like, same with Smiths. I mean, Smiths was a bit late for it, but you put the Yolas noobs. Yeah, you got to lean into that shit. It's the only way you can control it.
But obviously, like looking back in retrospect, I think probably me and you have gone a bit too hard on some people sometimes, and I think Smoothie was definitely one of those guys. I think the last episode, especially, and I'll just admit this, like, because I'm more than capable of being honest and admitting when I'm wrong. The last episode we talked about him, which I can't remember what it was, when he had that like GG disconnect drama, like
yes.
It's massively hypocritical for me to highlight that while also simultaneously pretending I'm against cancel culture. And I'll be honest, the only reason I highlighted it is because it was him. So I would have talked about it on the podcast, but tweeting about a clip, saying he's a liar, going on a whole rant about how, I only did that because of our history, and like I'm a fucking grown man and he's a lot younger than me, and like I shouldn't have done that. And it was just stupid. Like, so when I sat down and talked to him with the perspective of it all and understanding, how stuff you say on a podcast, because understand as well, in my brain, no one even watches this show, really. It's just two angry old men shouting into a webcam. I don't consider it to have the importance that it ends up having.
It's also just supposed to be a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, but sometimes, we're not doing it for fun. I guess it depends on the topic. But yeah, so for me, even if he wants to recant it at a later date, I think probably like for a young guy growing up under the spotlight, being from the UK, and he's been similar to me. He's been the victim of being misunderstood in some of the dramas where actually what he was accused of doing wasn't all that bad, or it wasn't fully accurate and stuff. So we had a long talk about it. We were on the phone for about an hour or whatever, and I thought, you know what? I am happy to call him my liege and bend the knee to the Rat King and just leave that petty grievance back in history where it belongs, and hope he gets his career back on track, because, I don't think he's a bad lad. I think he's done a lot of growing up the last couple of years, and he felt really bad about the whole GG disconnecting. Felt he'd let his teammates down and stuff. So yeah, that's.
I think you're too harsh on us in that scenario, mate. Because here's the problem, right? First of all, even when he was being an obnoxious cunt, and as a result, that energy is what was fueling it. Again, notice we weren't the one keeping that going. He would do more things and foil it.
Sure.
Even during all that, we never ever lied about his play. We never ever denigrated his play and said he was a bad player, he shouldn't play, he shouldn't be.
No, never.
Never picked him up.
We never do that about anyone.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is almost no one else in our space can say that, Richard. They do the opposite, as you pointed out in the opening. Like, if they don't like you, they have to lie about everything else in your career and your life.
Of course, yeah.
They have to do that. So there's one way that it is just literally banter. But secondly, I'll also say this, right? One part that I don't like about that particular approach of where, like, people are like, oh, you should know at your age not to do this. First of all, let's just be real. Everyone on the internet discussing any drama is a hypocrite immediately. Like, I don't flex this because I just say I don't mind being an arsehole. But I've read a lot of philosophy in my life, especially like Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, etc., and concepts like the idea of like, don't like take negative energy and pass it on in the world. Like, it all sounds great, but the problem is this: it's very difficult to apply that every second of your life, especially if someone's being a cunt towards you. So what I'll say is this, right? And this is going to be, if you actually had any self-awareness, like the epiphany for people on Reddit and Twitter and social media, but it won't be because they don't have self-awareness, right? Notice how the same person who'll go, this is a 40-year-old man and he's commenting on a 70-year-old player and doing all that. I think he's a piece of shit. It's like, you didn't even have the self-awareness yourself not to do it. You just did it yourself right there. You guys couldn't hold back your response online. That was mean and rude and not called for and goes over the top. None of us can. If we could, by the way, here's the secret. We wouldn't be part of the drama. We'd be invisible. We'd be gone. Like, that's the point. If I could be some sage sat by the edge of the road who didn't need to think about any of this and could just, like, I'll give you an example. One of my favorite memes is this one where this, like, Indian guru just says something like, don't ever waste your time arguing with people. And then this guy goes, I think you're wrong. And he goes, yes, you are correct. I wish I could be that guy. That sounds like the dream. That is actually, he's low-key, like, my actual wet dreamer, like the man I wish I could be. The problem is, that's like a ridiculous, like, that's why he'd be like a Buddha, wouldn't he? Like, no fucking human can do that, I'm afraid, guys. Yeah. So we're all going to have moments where we wreck people. And all I'll say is, if you don't want it to get as bad as people like Smoothie, don't play the part in it that people like Smoothie played. Because here's the thing, that would never happen. Like, you know what? We wrecked fucking Dead Fox a load. But he never came and just outright attacked us. So it just went, after a while, it was a little joke that lasted, and it went.
Mate, Dennis has messaged me, loads of times saying love the show, love the content, and think about all things about him. But it affects different people in different ways. And
of course, sure.
While I'm never gonna like renounce like genuine critique of someone's play, or not going to talk about their behaviors or whatever. I think probably that last segment I did was completely unnecessary in retrospect, and I don't like I know it's going to sound insane. I don't mind hurting someone's feelings, but it's not a great feeling to know you've done it. So, because I'd much...
Oh, no, of course not. By the way, that's one thing I don't like either. Like, I don't like the fact that, for example, I'll give you a great example. If someone comes and attacks me like stupid Jacob Wolf did over nothing, listen, I'll fire back at Sarah. It doesn't mean it's nice to say horrible things about people all the time. Sometimes you even do it and you go, it's fucking shit, we have to do this. But you know what? If you push me to a certain point, I won't say nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what I mean. It's like, obviously, when I think about everything that, like, there probably is a little bit of truth to like people saying, that I've lost like a little sense of perspective, like in the sense that I do genuinely find it hard when people are sort of coming at me, sort of give anyone the benefit of the doubt, because it's like I say, it's been over a decade of just relentless abuse for doing what I think does bring value to the industry and trying to help a lot of people. Now, there's a huge disconnect between the average fan and the industry people, and this is the key point. It's like, for my own sanity, I have to judge what the industry people say. Yes. They have to be the metric by which I think to myself, have I gone over the line here? Because obviously the general fan, because of some Reddit comment or tweet I made, I see the same names. They're there. They don't forget about stuff you did 7 years ago. It really is significant to them. They're still fucking furious about it, even though I'm like, I don't think about this at all. But it's had a profound impact on them. And so, yeah, I've lost a little bit of perspective. Maybe there is a part of that somewhere in the whole 3 Clicks Philip drama. I don't know. All I know is I get relentlessly pelted with shit every day, and I don't like it, but no one ever cuts me a break. No one ever says, oh, think about Richard's mental health, or Richard's been through a lot lately, or yeah, maybe we shouldn't do this to Richard. No, it's absolutely dogpile Richard Lewis till he fucking can't take it.
That's my problem, I think.
And this is why I have to like blow off the steam by pushing back. So that's actually a mechanism through which I can, because I understand conflict,
Even though, by the way, listen, my actions are not dictated by other people's in that regard. Like, I don't have to do something because someone does something. But I will say that's one thing that I find is such bullshit about these topics, though. Like, is it goes like this. If it's a famous pro player or a person in the industry, eventually people will say things like that. Like, but think about his feelings. And what about people saying things about him? And what about if some of your followers came after him? But I tell you what, nobody ever gave any sympathy for me on any scenario ever for like 20 years. So,
I say to my community all the time, if I ever caught any regular in my community, right, ever doing that to somebody else, they will be exposed and excommunicated. But my group of people, my Discord, it doesn't do that. They don't even fucking go and like upvote my stuff or whatever. You know what I mean? We've got a rule that like they're around because they like my content and they like me and they like my stream, right? It's got nothing to do. I don't want to hate. I don't want an audience that defines themselves by hating anyone that comes against me, because it'll drive them insane. Like you'll be constantly fighting battles all the time. So I don't want that. I don't want that from anyone. And I made it clear. And even Philip himself said nobody attacked me. In his own words. And it will be like that. And it will be like that after this show. The only way he can make himself look bad is by carrying on a beef that, frankly, the way I always think about it is you have a swing, I have a swing, you have a swing, I have a swing. Right, see you next week. It'll be someone else next week.
By the way, like this. Think about this for a second, because I don't think we've ever made this point on By the Numbers, but I think the By Numbers crowd will be exactly the perfect one to make it right. When people say, as they always do, especially like the ones who they're taking cues from how the SJWs used to do it like 6-7 years ago, right? They go, he's got a bloody toxic following that just sets on everyone he doesn't like. And look, and then they say all that stuff. The people who follow you are a reflection of who you are. Even though, by the way, sometimes the person who follows me follows you, you daft cunt. Think it through. Who does that get assigned to? But anyway, we all know that's a stupid game. So it goes like this, right? Yeah. Here's the point to think of. On the one hand, right, our crime is that we have this massive following that might be full of all toxic elements and deplorables. So if we attempt to curate that following by checking what they're saying and blocking and removing the ones we don't want associated, now we're an even worse monster who just blocks people who disagree with them. Well, which is it? Damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to get out of that?
Yeah, you can't, mate. You can't. You're not even. So it's a wild one. But look, we've spent an hour on petty grievances, and there's a ton of news. So again, just to put a pin in it, I hope it's. Listen. I hope that's the end of it between me and Philip and all the other stuff. As things stand, he's definitely come out on top, as you would expect. And I will be, and there'll be seismic repercussions for the next few weeks. Every time content comes out, there'll be people downvoting it and being abusive about it or whatever, and that's fine. That's all in the game. There'll be another drama coming along in a week or two. Who fucking knows who it's going to be? It'd be nice to do something a bit different. Maybe I could annoy some sumo wrestlers or something. Like just for a change instead of it being like Counterstrike fans, but. It's all just so fucking stupid. He doesn't need to be beefing with me. I don't need to be beefing with him. Let's just fucking, let's just wait for the next drama. Hopefully he's never embroiled in one again, because I can tell he doesn't really like it. So, that's that. Anyway, all the news that's fit to print. As we said, tons of roster changes coming in. Tons of insane shit coming in. I'll tell you what, we'll just quickly do some Pro League stuff, because we have touched on it at various points. We obviously had the final. We got an absolute banger, including probably one of the greatest clutches of all time, although it might be hyperbolic to call it the greatest, because obviously it wasn't at LAN. But basically, Heroic came out on top after beating Gambit in a best of 5. A fantastic series, even though I agree with Semler's comments that best of 5s in the current meta are absolute ass in general. And you shouldn't be playing Counter-Strike for 7 hours in a row.
I personally like them just because anytime they have them on a broadcast Sponge works on, you just can't make that point anymore. That's the sort of person I am, guys. I don't give a fuck, mate. I don't give a fuck. Because here's the thing, I love best of 5s. They're the ones who always say their shit, but then they have to go, oh, this could be incredible. So, oh, really? You tell me more, mate. Go on. Yeah, keep going.
No, the thing is, though, like I was all for the best of 5s until the economy.
Here's the problem. Online, it is ass. Obviously, it's fucking garbage, isn't it? Like, because it's. I always said this. It's supposed to be for the biggest events online. The idea is it's like a Super Bowl setting. You wouldn't want to have a Super Bowl at the end of every 2 weeks, would you? It'd be shit.
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, so look, let's just talk about the games. There was a bunch of teams that kind of had a pretty good showing and punched above their weight, which I think is indicative of the times in which we live. I know a lot of people are going to say it's all online. I saw MSL's comments recently about ignore Astralis. But when you consider the top 4 teams at this event were Heroic, Gambit, Furia, and NIP, there's a lot of big names, teams that really let themselves down. Evil Genius is out in dead last. We're going to talk about them in just a bit. Liquid in 9th to 12.
Mate,
Navi in 9th to 12. So G2 in 7th to 8.
If you asked a fan, before this tournament, pick the top 8 teams, mate, this will be one of those ones, like those League of Legends pick'em brackets where, the only person who gets in at the end is some guy who's drunk and just did it, at 2 in the morning. Nobody would pick this top 8 ever. Look at it. What's mad is go to Liquipedia, and then when you see that, top 4, whatever, just click it, and you'll see all the best teams below there. Everyone was in this tournament, remember? They just all finished, 8th to 9th, or 8th to fucking 16th or something, didn't they?
But this is why I think it's so indicative of what's going on. For me, the big surprise actually in this was that Virtus Pro didn't finish a little bit further up. It was Complexity that beat them, right? That was the real surprise. Because I think Virtus Pro are better than 7th to 8th currently in World Counter-Strike terms. But in general, NIP have made good on their promise. We haven't got time to really talk about all of that, since they brought in ZTR. And it's not that I think they're doing anything absolutely groundbreaking or amazing in the same way that Gambit or Virtus Pro or Heroic are. But sometimes you just make one change and that gives everybody a lift. Threat's doing obviously great work over there and whatnot. So anyway, we'll just talk about the final for now. So I had it about 70-30 that Gambit were going to win. I think Gambit are the #1 team in the world. They were recently crowned the #1 team on HLTV. I don't even think it's close, honestly, in terms of tactics, raw fragging ability, absolute star player performances that people can pop off at any time.
I think they've already lost something mental, 2 series out of the last 20 or something, Rich. So I think it's pretty hands down at the #1 team.
Yeah, over the last 3 months, they've got an 83% win rate rate on maps, which obviously does include a Pinnacle Cup and a Snow Sweet Snow.
Still a lot of really good teams to play, though, for sure.
Obviously, it also includes, you know, Katowice, and which they won, and being runner-up at ESL Pro League. So, you know, this is, and when you consider, I think they're the youngest team to ever get #1 in the HLTV rankings.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, okay. I think that might be true. This is actually incredible what's been going on, and me and you have been talking about it for a long time. So I was very surprised to not see them win. We'll talk about Heroic in a second. Let's talk about the rise of Gambit.
People don't know, by the way, even that #1 detail is not a minor piece of trivia. True, it is the online period, so obviously we've had a lot more turnover. But if people don't know, when I first made my rankings, which if you don't know, a lot of people don't, there was no HLTV.org rankings. Theirs came like a year and a half after mine or a year later. When I first made my rankings, I think for something mad, like the first 2 years worth of rankings, like 3 teams were ever ranked #1, Richard. 3 ever. And one was like, you know, for like 2 weeks or something, like LDLC was the, you know, like, well, it was ridiculous. It was like Fnatic the whole time, you know, something like that. Like, I don't think people realize, like, getting to #1, especially until about, I'd say like 2 years ago, was an insane career accomplishment. I almost feel like back in the day, especially on LAN, it was equivalent to, like, you know, in tennis, if you become #1, even for 1 week, they give you a trophy that says #1. Like you get a, oh no, maybe that's the year end #1 or whatever, but whatever it is, like it's a massive deal in a lot of sports. So that is not a minor thing. It's the same as back in the last summer when Heroic first made it the last time. Like, that is a big career accomplishment if you can get to world #1, no matter who you are.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, they're not doing it just by playing like dull, attritional Counterstrike. You know, it's like they really have some like unbelievable players. Like, I mean, does anyone think fucking Shiro isn't one of the best players in the world? Like, you know, this guy's fucking insane. It's actually incredible. You know, we're getting to a stage now. If he maintains this level of form, you know, he's right up there with the fucking, you know, big boys. Like, you know, we're suddenly talking about, you know, obviously Simple Z, we won the island, then Device, but then, you know, he's fucking, I'd rather have Shiro than Nico right now. I hate to say it.
There's a lot of players you'd pick, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but, you know, and just the way as well, mate, he reminds me so much of Flusher, which I know people are going to misinterpret immediately. But there was a moment where in the map they lost, they got absolutely battered at the half, and he was just smiling and laughing, like like as if he believed like we can come back, and yeah, like the guy's got a really good mental game. So for someone so young, so it was. I mean, I've been loving this team. I love watching Gambit. They're now one of my favorite teams to watch. But that being said, what a mad fucking story Heroic have achieved. I mean, especially after the Fun Plus Phoenix deal fell through, which I know you were privy to some of those details because that was all over at Flashpoint.
Oh, mate, the funniest thing about this is, even though people would think I'm loath to say this, because in a fucked up sense, I'm sort of actually congratulating Nicola Nyholm if you boil it down enough. Yeah. Basically, Nicola Nyholm and Astralis' machinations, where they managed to convince Esatag to join at the end of his contract, which wasn't then, it was in like 2 months or something at that point in time, and therefore fuck up the FPX deal because the other players were going to sign, but then since they don't have the 5, their deal never went through. Therefore, the team didn't leave Heroic and become FPX and go to Flashpoint is literally, I would say, the only reason any of this right now is possible. Because since that didn't happen, right, they ended up in a scenario where the team stagnated. Snappy got kicked out the team. He obviously ended up standing in for Fnatic, for Astralis himself. And then they got to the lineup with Borup and who was the other player? Who was the 5th one I'm thinking of?
Well, was Snappy got replaced
Snappy
by...
and Esatag. Who did they bring in? Borup and who?
Did Tezes come in with Borup?
Yes, that was when Tezes came. You're right, from Copenhagen Flame. So when they made that lineup and got the #1 initially, that lineup probably never happens if they're in Flashpoint. Like, if they're in the FPX org, I can tell you, the FPX org back then didn't even have a GM. They would not have had any understanding of the play of the team. So they'd still be a Snappy-based team, basically, which, by the way, would not be world #1. Like, that's no hate to Snappy. He's just trying to play a different style of Counter-Strike. Then you get to the point that, because that didn't happen, they then had the whole year where when they cooled off after Hunter got banned, they finally made these roster moves, which looked fire at the time and have worked out really great, and they're now a very good team. So it's a very circuitous route, but actually, yeah, in a fucked up sense, if things had gone as planned with the FPX deal, I'm actually pretty sure none of this happens. In fact, Danish Counter-Strike will be very different, because I tell you what, if Astralis is like where they are now, like, you know, they're barely clinging on to like a top 5 spot and they look like they're going to drop, mate, that's not even the big deal. If you know the way that marketing works now, the way you hurt Astralis isn't say they're #7 in the world now. You say they're not even the #1 Danish team. That's how you kill Astralis. And that's why, if people don't know, good old Nicola Nyholm, when fucking Hunden got that ban, did that mad tweet where he was sort of like, I expect someone to come into my office from Heroic and explain what was going on. Because he can't handle the idea that they're #1 in Denmark, because it makes a mockery of everything that Astralis tries to represent themselves as. So, yeah, the idea that, like, Heroic, let's be real, like, right now, today, they are better than Astralis. Maybe they won't be in the future, who knows? They weren't in the past at times. But, yeah, that's a massive accomplishment. Respect.
Yeah. And just a few words about Cadian. I tried to do his story justice, but I was on a deadline. So for those who don't know, what happens is at the end of a game, Deserter want me to kind of go in cold and basically like record a video, you know, my thoughts, like instant reacting to stuff, and then I upload it, and so the emotions are fresh, and then they put it out the next day and rinse and repeat until the tournament's over. That's pretty much what I'm doing at the moment. And I tried to do Cadian's story justice, but forgot a key detail because, of course, I am not the esports historian. I missed out the fact that he nearly quit and was actually doing commentary at one point. I want to say around about 2016, because he didn't think it was after he'd had a little spell in Rogue where he played with like Maniac and
they had that international team.
Yeah, and those guys that went before they picked up the NA team that he eventually went and played with.
I think they had like Bubble or a couple of the Bulgarians.
Yeah, it was Victor and Bubble. Yeah, and I can't remember. And Tensky was the fifth actually.
There we go.
You know, I'd always liked Cadian. I remember, in fact, here's a funny anecdote I didn't tell in that video. I remember one time, and this is like ages ago, and it only jogged my memory because I sent him a congratulations DM, and I was looking at our, you know, his chat history. And in 2015, on By the Numbers, I think we'd said something like, "Oh, you know, Cadian being replaced makes sense on some team he was on." And he reached out and said, "Oh, someone told me you were talking shit about me. What did you say?" And I went, "Oh, all I said was that I think Tensky might be an upgrade for you on a team. Just opinions, you know." And he went, "Oh, no, I totally agree. Keep up the good work." Like, just an absolute fucking stellar guy, you know, never any drama or nonsense with him. But I remember we did a segment at that fucking Ace of Predator Masters where he was on... on the sofa, and it is crazy to think like how close he came. He was like doing the Danish streams for events and stuff. He nearly didn't have a playing career, and now like he's one of the best active IGLs and just won fucking Pro League.
The stats are bonkers online as well. If people don't know, I think his HLTV rating for the last year is like 1.29 or something like that. Remember, he's playing all the tier 1 tournaments as well. That is actually absurd.
Yeah.
No, if people don't know, I mean, I've told this story before. I think it might even have been in the best to Buy the Numbers or something. The reason that's crazy, Cadian's turnaround, is it's actually like, in terms of it, like his perception in the community, it's like Pimps. Because if people don't know, him and Pimp were little shits as far as I can tell in Source. I wasn't in Source. And so basically within the Danish scene, people didn't like them. And you get in that scenario where the only people who play with you is people who think you're good or as good as them. And therefore they'll let you in their team. Like, I told this story, so I won't recount it. There used to be a Facebook group where the whole premise was almost like it's the No Cadians Club. Like, I think
it was literally called Fuck Cadian.
Yeah, there you go. It's called Fuck Cadian. Now obviously he was a young guy at the time, just like Pimp was super young when he was fucking raging and saying people cheaters or whatever. But here's the thing that's crazy about his career. Even though we're talking about online at this point in time, because he hasn't done that HLTV rating online at this point in time. I mean, he hasn't had the chance, to be fair, but he hasn't. What I'll say is this. If any of that translates to LAN, he's a new contender for like craziest career turnaround of all time. Because the guy's been playing CSGO the whole time. Like, if people don't know, he was destined to always be a journeyman, like Richard was describing, going from team to team, because not only was he not liked, he just wasn't that great a player. He was one of those streaky AWPers who was decent enough, and I will say, did definitely improve his attitude, like you said, to teammates and being a good player and stuff, but he just didn't look like he had the it factor. He was never going to be like some super duper player, but whatever he's done in this online period, whether it lasts beyond it, just in and of itself, it's mad admirable. And as you say, I love it when people who have like the attitude of like, oh, they're toxic, not only turn it around, but they actually become like a fucking productive person. Like, as you say, they can actually take criticism. Sometimes they'll even give you like a little bit of info. Like, there's actually some other people I won't mention by name, but someone I might know if I'm referencing here. There's people before where I could have had a big beef for them if they just only ever publicly tried to go back at me or say I don't know anything. But the ones who reached out and were like, actually, you know, in this team, you might not know this, but you know, I was having issues with this player, and so we agreed like I would do this. So, mate, if you tell me that stuff, it can actually might change my perspective. I might actually be able to like have a more tempered take on it next time, or I might be able to do a devil's advocate for you, even if I can't say you said it, you know. So yeah, I think he's one of those people who's proven himself, in my opinion. He gets the game in terms of the social game as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the other interesting thing about the turnaround is community perception. which is, again, this is obviously going to be the common theme of this episode, isn't it? Because, I mean, he was another guy that, like, got a lot of fucking hate. I don't even know what it was. Like, he had a reputation for, like, snaky roster moves. He's never done anything that no other players done.
No, put it this way, by the way, Apex used to have a mad reputation for the same thing.
Exactly.
You know,
like, put it this way, there's not many players who, when they make a roster change, sit you down and go, we're now actively thinking about cutting you, and we're going to be trying out these people. The general level of maturity, especially back then, was that you just go, right, see you tomorrow for practice, guys, and they go, yeah, and then they fuck off to a secret Discord or a secret TeamSpeak, or Ventrilo as it was back then, right? And they just start playing with the other guy on alternate accounts.
And then your manager just goes, I need to have a chat with you. You're free for a call, and then the second you see that, you're done. And by the way, if people don't know, this even went on until recently. And what happens is when you're kicked, the others just say nothing, and they awkwardly wait until you're sort of like removed from the premises. That's like an analogy towards if you're in the building, you know. And then what they do is a few weeks later, they just act like nothing ever happened. It's all cool at that point. There's never any closure. You never get to have a back and forth. They just it's exactly like he's saying. You just wake up one day and you're not in the team anymore.
And if you think it's not still happening now and it doesn't happen at the highest level, you know, go watch my interview I did with Carrigan. It's that same shit. So anyway,
do you imagine Issa stupidly said those things publicly?
Not
understanding. And by the way, guys, am I just so lucky that I bat 1,000? I knew this motherfucker was going. That's why the reason I didn't even go harder is I had him in the palm of my hand the whole time, guys. But I know the axe is already coming to chop his head off, so I don't need to do it. So I just fucking chilled.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, look, you know, just in terms of turnarounds, like you say, I mean, he's only 25 as well.
That's mental, isn't it? When you think about that, how can he only be 25?
Yeah, I know. And what they've done since bringing in the Mad Lions guys is they are a world-class team now, Heroic. I would even go so far as to say the best team in Denmark right now.
Their team looks functional, mate. I love those roster moves, and they're working out like a motherfucker.
Yeah. So on that note, let's bring up what's been going on with Astralis lately. What has been going on with Astralis lately? It's all got a bit weird over there. They're not winning as many series as they used to.
Listen, you don't have to do it, mate. You don't have to pay me via PayPal. If you want another game, hit me up. I'll put out another video. Time it. You know, this time maybe pick a map you can play. But, you know, we can arrange it. Richard, this is like some by-the-numbers level shit. What are the odds, mate, that he plays one map in all of 2021? I do a video. The next week he's just playing. And you know what? It's almost like someone watched the video, Richard, because not only is he playing, he's specifically not just playing Nuke anymore.
Yeah.
These guys are so shameless. It's unreal. If people don't know in esports, because I always get this, Richard, right, what happens is Thorin goes, there's a big problem X in the scene. The person responsible for problem X does something to fix it. And the fan goes, dickhead, they fixed it anyway. It's like, do you even understand the linear concept of time and cause and effect?
Yeah. I mean, so, you know, they have been having a tough time of it lately. And just to reiterate, the MSL comment that I referred to earlier in the show was MSL said, listen, this is all online. Astralis shouldn't make any roster changes. I think you repeated these points on the HLTV podcast. I haven't had time to watch it
yet. He says the same thing on one that I've got tomorrow, Counterpoints. Yeah, basically, what he says is, like, if LAN came here tomorrow or if we get back to he thinks Astralis, for example, should keep the same lineup and they could potentially be the best again.
Which is, you know, listen, I appreciate his perspective. He's MSL.
It's not an unpopular one with top pros, by the way. There's plenty of them think that.
Yeah, but like, I don't buy it for a second because, first of all, we've had a year to adapt. The idea that online is so alien, a team like Astralis can't actually adapt to it. Also, all of the teams that have crept up in the rankings are the ones in boot camps playing under LAN conditions, not playing in their bedrooms. So it doesn't even align with what MSL is saying is happening. Now, I know LAN is very different, but still, for me, I think you massively detract from Gambit, who I think are going to be perfectly fine at LAN, by the way. I think Heroic, they're another team. I think Virtus Pro, everyone's saying, your Kindle will not be the world's best entry fragger at LAN. Well, let's all wait and see how that pans out, because let me tell you, this isn't like the early days of like, one online tournament, 2 online tournaments. This is now over a year of pandemic conditions that we've played in. So for me, as weird as this era is, you're going to have to count it as legit, or you're going to have this big chunk of Counterstrike history that we're all going to, like, pretend doesn't matter on some level. And unfortunately, if we did that, it would be with some of the most interesting developments in the scene. Yes. So, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not.
I'll give you another perspective people haven't thought of as well, because I've seen this in League of Legends where they went like briefly back to LAN sort of for Worlds, and now they're doing it again with like LEC and stuff, right? Here's the interesting detail. The reason why it won't be, unfortunately, none of us are going to get, by the way, the satisfying validation of knowing one way or the other. Like, we're not going to have a LAN and Gambit be awesome, and we're not going to have a LAN and Gambit fail. Here's why. Because odds are we won't go straight back to a LAN like we used to have with the full crowd in the stage setup. What we'll do is we'll have a LAN, but it'll only be the players there initially. So there won't be a massive crowd. And then there'll be a tiny crowd like American football games, and maybe be 1,000 people spread out. So actually, if anything, these teams also, which is quite cool, are actually going to sort of get a sort of transition phase in which they can make a few mistakes, have a few off games, and hopefully by the time they are on a stage with a massive crowd, with all the old circumstances and all the old script, by then hopefully they even have a little run up to it. So actually teams like Gambit, it's not like they have to flip the switch tomorrow. They'll have a little transition phase.
Yeah. So look, let's talk about Astralis, because this was just weird. They were losing games. They got absolutely fucking mauled again by Furia. This is happening more and more.
Think about how many times they've been 2-0'd now and just spanked on some maps. The Astralis of old, I always used to say, the thing I respected the most was you could beat them, but you had to have like the game of your career. You know?
If anyone's coming back and taking you to overtime from a seemingly unassailable position, it was these guys. They've been there. They've done that. Glaive as well. You know, a fucking legendary IGL who just got balls of fucking steel. He'll just make some mad call out of nowhere, catch you with your pants down. They know how to turn the screw when you're under pressure, and they do it relentlessly and remorselessly. It's why they're the best fucking team to ever touch the game. You know what I mean? That's why they've been on top for 4 years. But I've been saying it, nothing lasts forever. These guys have been a paper tiger for fucking 6 to 8 months. They've been there for the taking. They are beatable. And go look at the teams they're losing to now. It's not even the best ones. In fact, all the best teams that should be saying, right, Astralis, thanks for keeping that fucking crown warm for us. Thanks for keeping that throne warm for us. They're the ones pussying out right now and shitting the bed, while teams like Heroic and Gambit are just doing good fundamentals, good practice, treating the online era with the respect you have to succeed in it. And they are climbing up the rankings and making Astralis and all these other teams look like absolute fucking jesters. So that is the backdrop of what's been going on here. And then when you start thinking about it, like, listen, Glaive had a nightmare fucking series in the Furia one. Like, I don't know if Glaive's thinking about leaving, because obviously he's got a kid on the way. We all know that. And by the way, you know, I rarely bring up details like that, but he has tweeted about it publicly, so that's all.
Yeah, it's public information, and we're not criticising him, by the way.
No. Listen, I hope, and I say this to anyone who's expecting a kid: make sure you take the full fucking paternity leave and enjoy those, early days, and forget all of this noise and bullshit. That's your life. That's your child. Go enjoy it. And Glaive's got nothing left to prove in this fucking game, whether he comes back or retires or whatever. Who's going to say anything bad about him? But unfortunately, it does mean, from a team perspective, Astralis don't seem to be the same force they were. I mean, like, Zipnix hasn't been playing particularly well for a while. We know he was looking around in free agency to see what kind of salaries he could get back in the day. And you've got Bubsky, you know, this guy who's lurking. Well, he's not a replacement for either of them. He's not a replacement for Zipnix. He doesn't play the same roles, doesn't play the same way. He's not a replacement for Glaive. That's a legendary IGL. You're not even replacing Glaive, by the way. I don't care which IGL you get now. You're not replacing Glaive.
I mean, the joke would be, obviously, they did win those 2 tournaments using Magisk, right? Well, you saw what the toll was. It's tanked his whole fucking individual game. So it's not even like that's a massive, like, it's not, I wouldn't rush to that move myself, personally, you know?
Yeah, totally. And so you're left with this weird situation that's come up where people know something's got to change in Astralis because they're not used to using it. But the era's over, and you shouldn't expect them to come back or bounce back, whether it's at LAN or otherwise. These players have done unthinkable things. Exactly. Like, what more? Like, the only thing that they've really got left to do is this major at the end of the year, rock up and win that just for banter, right? Like, then all right, then you're on some other level shit. That's like Marvel, end game nonsense. But I just don't think they can do it, and I don't think it's reasonable to expect that they do it. They're still a very good team. They're still a very competitive team. They're still comfortably within the top 5. They're definitely not number 2 in the world right now. That's based on the decay from other events. But listen, we're going to have to get used to the fact that these boys aren't going to be around forever. You got to get used to the fact that if you're a true Astralis fan, you got to think about, all teams are like a Theseus's ship. You'll still have Device. You'll probably still have Dupree. You'll probably still have Magisk. Maybe you do have to go replace Glaive, especially if he's going to take paternity leave. Bubsky played today, and it was a fucking horror show. It was an absolute nightmare. He got 7 frags because you can't expect him to come off the bench having played 16 times since they bought him. That was his 17th map that he's played for Astralis, I think.
Dude, you know the killing thing is when I did some pretty good like contrast in my video about Bobski, but sadly, this is what I should have looked up because I never thought this is an angle. This would have been the real killer line, and I actually tweeted it. Basically, when I said that Bobski over like 8+ months had played 16 maps, when I looked it up, Yugi had played 15 for Astralis.
Yeah.
In that like fucking 2 months or whatever he was in the team.
Yeah.
That's the fucking killer, isn't it? When he played one more map than Yugi, we weren't even there, and like that's it's game over already. What's mad is, if people don't know, I've got a good angle for them, actually, where, let me just double check something very quickly here, just so I actually am correct. I'm just going to check I've got the right name for it here. Because I actually did a video where basically, if people are interested as to why it wouldn't matter if Astralis ever were good again, this is basically, let me think. Yes, I think this is one, right? I actually did a video last year. It was called Astralis Calls Unlikely Path to GOAT Status, if someone wants to go watch the whole thing. And basically, I made a point that was actually like an angle no one else had, which is what's funny is, if you actually wanted the perfect career, in terms of, nobody, by the way, gets the career where they start, they just win everything, and when they decide to leave, it was when they were still winning everything. No one in the history of any sport ever had that. And by the way, don't start going, Rocky Martin. Yeah, in modern sports, daft cunt. No, as soon as it's black and white, you don't even need to start bringing it up. Like, what about in tennis when it's a run? Yeah, again, if it's in black and white, don't bother bringing it up. So I talk in the modern sports day, right? Everyone is going to have a point. Even Michael Jordan has a point where you're amazing, but you don't win. You have a point where you win and you're the best you maintain. You have a point afterwards where maybe you stuck around too long. This is what's amazing about Astralis. Every other great team tended to have it like this. You have potential, you just seize upon it because, I'm sorry, to be a champion typically does tend to be that you don't have choke type issues. You're just the guy who doesn't. You got lucky. You got through the first sort of like natural selection like trigger and you didn't get cut off by it. So you don't have to struggle. So you go from being pretty good so your skills are that pretty good, translating to championships, you're number one, right? Then what you have is called the incredibly depressing slide downhill. Think of NIP, Fnatic, the SK guys. What happens is you go from being number one, so like, you're still pretty good, you're like number 4 or something. You know you're in the mix. In fact, you get like the Astralis effect now where some team still loses to you because your name's Fnatic and Olafmeister, and they used to lose, so even though they're better, it doesn't matter. You keep going down, think of Nape versus Pro, Fnatic, all of them, they all did this. You go from number 4, and you know what? You stick with the roster too long because they were the guys you won the majors with. So now you go to number 9 in the world. You know what? Number 9 in the world, you still got a couple of good players. You can do some things here and there. Eventually, like everyone, you end up in the bottom of the top 20 and you just hope you can do it. Astralis had the opposite. They started as the fucking like the 15th best team. Then they became like, you know, the 8th best team. Then they became like the 4th best team and they were frustratingly stuck like 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 3rd, but they couldn't win the major. Then they won the major and just stayed on top. Then they had a couple of times they came back and won. Dude, these guys can just stop playing and never play another second of Counterstrike. And they should literally, despite all those chokes, think literally like, I'm so grateful I had the best career you could ever imagine because that is actually the most satisfying career arc. I know it feels like it wouldn't be, but I'll tell you what, you go and you ask people like Flusher who won everything like 5 years ago but are still here and they've won very little since. That's not very satisfying, guys. Like, I actually think in a fucked up way, because they did get to number 1, I think Astralis had the coolest career path ever.
Yeah, I totally agree. But then you just get locked into this weird thing where, like, because of Nicola Naom's past, I can't judge a tweet. Like, if you want to bring it up, Sam, I've just sent it to you before the viewer questions. But you know, I don't know why he's tweeting stuff like this, and he says he's not joking. He says Bubsky should be playing in that team, which suggests, I mean, notoriously, when I was looking into it, everyone told me all the players in Nicola Naom were cool. In fact, they actually really liked him because he did always have their back, and you know, it was other areas of the org where they had problems with. But he tweeted that as they were getting battered by Furia, I think, and so as a result, you're like, bro, that's not, the optics of that are terrible. It's also going to create friction within the team. And imagine if you're Bubsky. And then he gets his opportunity today, and it's not really an opportunity at all to just play one map when you're coming in cold. They probably didn't prepare for him, didn't make any system. But I didn't know better, Duncan. I would say it was linked to this in some way, and I'll send it to Sam.
I've got a good angle, so let's see what this is.
All right. So this is that Astralis are now looking to go public on the US stock exchange. Before, they were on the Danish stock exchange. And so obviously, if all the headlines are about terminal decline and a team sliding down the rankings, and you've got all these like players on big salaries, but they're not really assets anymore, you can't really sell them, not to mention the economic downturn in CS we keep talking about, you know, these results, look, we know it doesn't mean anything, but people who might buy in shares, it means everything.
For sure.
The people want to buy shares in something they have confidence in. They want to buy in excellence. And we saw all the wrangling they went through when they floated on the Danish stock exchange. This is bigger for more money. So this sort of was a story that was a bit of a sleeper that not a lot of people covered. And I just wonder if this whole like free Bubsky angle, bringing a player here, you know, we're totally changing stuff. We're going to be number one again. I wonder if it's linked to that. What did you think?
Right, here's the thing, the problem I had. First of all, you kind of alluded to it there, but I can't take anything Nicola Nyholm says at face value or in good faith until I've checked out the background of it, basically, because he's a proven liar. And he not only lies, he habitually lies. In fact, I've always said, the thing about Nicola Nyholm is, he isn't, by the way, some super next level Bond villain to me. Like, he's not like Lex Luthor to my Superman, because he's not even on that level. Like, what makes him boring to me is that, to me, it's so transparent he lies. Like, he's almost like that joke people used to have where it's like, if you read like a trash tabloid, just assume it's the opposite, whatever they say, and you get a pretty good, accurate, like, view of the world. It's the same shit with him. So the sad thing about him is, right, I thought at first, this is amazing, I'm nailing this guy and everything. I realized the people that he's appealing to with this information don't care about facts. So actually, it doesn't matter. Like his lies do work. They work on 99% of fans. And then the 1% that are vocal on the internet, maybe some of them believe me, but they're nutters anyway. So that doesn't even really count for anything. So my problem is this. When I saw this, it first of all reminded me of another thing that was like this that he did, which is when, apropos of nothing, he did that really bizarre tweet that essentially was a backhanded diss against North for how Kirby was playing. At a time when Kirby wasn't that far, I think it was maybe a month later, from going to, I think it was FaZe in the end. Yeah. Right? The problem, again, is Nicola Nyholm doesn't do a tweet. He's not like me or Richie. He doesn't just tweet our thoughts for no reason. Like, he does things with a method behind why he's doing it. There's an agenda, and I would suggest he reverse engineers what his end goal is. So in my opinion, he did the Kirby one, not only because, listen, it's nice, free, bad PR against North to basically blame them for a player like fucking getting wrecked, and by the way, experiencing burnout, which you're fucking all pause players to have too. But okay, there's that. I also think he was sort of implying publicly, like, let's get Kirby into Astralis, because remember, they were always looking for more players. And if I connect the dots, right, as I told people on some past episodes of By the Numbers, one of the reasons I knew Bobsky was in deep shit is because not only was he being shopped by Astralis, or rather people were allowed to inquire and potentially get the sale, and they sort of said we would do it if you hit this particular number, but also I then heard that they were out there looking for other players in the scene, Richard. Well, why would you need other players if you already got this 5 and Bobsky? You wouldn't. That tells me that at a minimum, you don't want Bobsky. And more than that, you're looking for more players anyway, but that's weird. You've already got your 5 players. So personally, I think what's going on, Richard, pure speculation on this particular part. I'm just now connecting dots to the other dots. This, to me, sounds like maybe a player is about to leave Astralis, Richard. And so what he's doing by saying publicly, I think Bobsky should play. Well, that's the only player right now they can put in to replace that player. So he gets to spin it that all along, you know, maybe he wanted them to go in this direction. Well, it's a way of sort of covering it. And if that player hasn't 100% yet decided, maybe they're still going back and forth. This is a way to be like, if you go, mate, we've got a guy ready to step in your shoes. It's a way to put pressure on someone in negotiation. So again, that part's pure speculation, that last part. But just looking at like Nicola Nyholm's track record, trying to get into his mind, that's sort of the things I imagine could motivate him to make said tweet.
Yeah, maybe. You know, I'm thinking since his, you know, we're all having such a great 2021, I might actually fucking try and get him on a podcast, you know. I think that could be some straight fire content, like just, you know, having actually called him a cunt. I think that could be, you know, because I know he won't tell me the truth.
I'm pretty sure he'd say yes, by the way. I'm pretty sure he'd accept.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's one of those people as well where, I'll say this right now, one of his biggest problems, as far as I can tell, is he's one of those like low-level liars who knows how to lie to random plebs. It's like someone who's read half a book on NLP, right? Yeah. It works. So the problem then becomes, they don't realize, like, it's like we're like the people where the Jedi mind trick doesn't work, but he just keeps doing it over and over and over again. So the reason I think he'll accept is he'll think if he gets Richard on camera and he gets to talk and he'll think he's going to win him over. So I think he'll say yes, mate. He'll think he's going to fucking rizzle dizzle his way all through it. You know, it'll be amazing though. There's
a great example that people might be able to find on YouTube from way back in the day. There was a guy. He's actually part of Astralis now. He used to run events and he he eventually went to Copenhagen Wolves, and he ran an event called The Experience, where it completely fucking went tits up at the end, and people were still waiting on their money for fucking months later. And, you know, in the Danish scene, there was a LAN every couple of months, and people would go, and he'd be there, and people would be like, "Where's my motherfucking money?" You know, they'd be like fucking De Niro in fucking Goodfellas, "Where's my money? My money!" And so anyway, like I've been calling him out about it for ages. People have been waiting so long to get this money from Experience, and he agreed to do an interview with me live on camera from the LAN event we were at, and so he thought I was doing him the solid of being the platform for the slick PR answer,
and you tracked him.
Mate, it's so funny because you can see the sweat patches under his arms just growing in real time as he's just withered under these questions, like going, yeah, but if you're that type of business, then surely it would be covered. Just like these questions and just wrecking him. So, you know, people have tried that shit with me before. I don't mind being Paxman. If the situation requires it.
So like, maybe the obvious example in the modern day, by the way, is I still to this day do not believe that Jake Lucky guy did that interview with you. Like, if he doesn't understand how hard he got owned, basically by himself there, you essentially just used the Socratic method to get him to just like slam the ball in his own face 15 times in a row. And at the end, as far as I can tell, he really thought like sort of nailed it. There. It's like,
yeah, nailed it. Yeah, no, but anyway, so I think it's something to do with that. I mean, what I'll say about Astralis is I think you need to expect changes to come in. I think they're basically doing this whole free Bubsky angle to shop Bubsky because he is an asset to the org. And
did you see, by the way, I don't know if you saw this detail. This is also the reason, Richard, I personally suspect there's something going on in the org.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but correct me if I'm wrong, fans in the chat. Was it not just recently announced that Device would be doing like a HLTV confirmed episode or something ridiculous? Remember the fucking timing of the last one? Yeah. Where, as far as I can tell, it's like he was essentially sent out there. And by the way, imagine this, guys. Imagine the org telling Device what he might want to say. Any precedent? No, never mind that. Device, : you know, so Nikolai, : like basically in this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and imagine this won't be Device just wanting to appear on a community talk show at a time when his team's in terrible dire straits to give his honest opinion about what's going on. This sounds like he's going to put out some fires for us boys.
Well, he did say there was an interview 11 hours ago on HLTV.
I saw the text one, yeah.
Yeah, and I skim read it because I was preparing for the show, but the tagline there is, it is expected that some things might change. Now,
maybe that was it then. Maybe I'm thinking of that instead. I'm not sure. People have to correct me.
Maybe that means, like, you know, we're going to change some things tactically. I haven't read the interview to get the details. Obviously, that's like a pretty sensational headline. Makes you click, oh, they're going to change what's changed. But another little detail was after they got battered by Furia, Glaive tweeted out, an end is sometimes the beginning, or an end is, you know.
Am I the only one, though, who, like, listen, my problem is this. Like, the Lihom one, he's just a liar. Glaive nearly always trolls when he does those. Like, I find it very hard to take those seriously. I feel like, especially because one thing, by the way, I actually like it about Glaive. I think he's got some of the best banter. In my opinion, after JW, Glaive has some of the best banter in the scene. Because what his banter is, this is how you know he isn't an arsehole. He actually will do the self-aware jokes about the shit that Astralis should be mocked for. Like, he's one of those guys where he was instantly doing jokes about that Device thing, about the idea that, like, you know, Glaive, he gets it. Like, he actually understands how to do those jokes. So the problem is, though, I feel like he's a massive troll. I don't know if I can believe what he's saying there, you know.
So, yeah, but I think as well it was more about, I literally had released a video which Deserter would call the end of Astralis, because, you know, they know how to do their headlines as well to make people click, which of course just means I've got angry Danes going at me for a day. They're never ending, they're never going to end, they're going to be here forever. Like, mate, come on. But anyway, so I thought he was alluding to that, because I know he does check out my stuff from time to time. And I think he was saying the end is in the beginning. In other words, people have said we've ended before.
Oh, for sure, yeah. He wouldn't be wrong on that, yeah.
It was almost
like, counting him out.
Yeah, but a lot of people took it to mean that he was maybe retiring, and I think there's been a bit of cross wires there. But it's nice, a little deliberate cryptic tweet for a bit of attention. Now, while we're talking about retirements, let's jump into the other big story. I mean, there's a ton, but let's talk about RPK.
Oh, by the way, I've got one little detail I'll just throw out there. Yeah, sure. All I'll say is this: a little birdie told me this particular team, the players and the coach, contracts all run out on the same day. That's just something a little bird sent my way.
Oh, yeah, no, I heard that too. Yeah. I mean, but again, apparently we're not supposed to say things that we hear because, you know, if an org refutes them, then the org wins.
Yeah, to be fair, what will happen is if Device does appear on HLTV confirmed and he doesn't say that that's correct, then Thorin just admit it's wrong. Device himself said it. So
yeah, I saw a few of those.
I'd love it if the world did work. Listen, if we were in like the inventional line or something, yeah, there'd be no problem. Like, give me a break. This is mental, isn't it?
So anyway, yeah, let's talk about the other one, RPK. Vitality, it's not been good for a while over there since that weird, you know, they had that good run at the end of the year. We were talking, are they the #1 team going into 2021? Started the year strong at the Blast, and then, you know, there was that drama with Apex, drama with the, you know,
getting rid of the sixth man, loads of stuff.
Yeah, getting rid of the sixth man all of a sudden. Yeah, you know, and who they were going to keep and who was going to play. And, you know, the results just haven't been there. They've had a really rotten time going into the ESL Pro League and had a very low down finish there. And in the end, I guess something had to give. And
here's how I know, by the way, Richard, even if I didn't follow CS, one way that I would know that Vitality is completely off the boil is magically I don't have thousands of people every day just preaching from the Church of Zemu. They've just quieted right the fuck down. I haven't heard from them the last few months, mate. It's just chill now. We can get back to watching CS.
Yeah, and so the statement was put out saying it was a tough decision. It was made by the team. So it's that was from Xtaz. So it suggests to me that, you know, RPK sort of had to leave. And they've brought in another player we'll talk about. But, you know, listen, RPK, I've known him a long time. Long time. I was around first time he retired. Back at the start of CSGO when he went to go and be a mechanic for a bit with his family. And he's a quiet fella. He's never said much, never been in dramas and all that. Keeps himself to himself, was always known as the Godfather.
Was he ever actually with someone, because obviously in Source, I'm assuming they have the translations. Was he ever a guy who ever like made public statements in Source and stuff?
So in Source, you could actually get him to basically do give you like sound bites and interviews and stuff, but he mainly felt more comfortable speaking in his native French. I'm sure he did a number with Vacom, a number of interviews with Vacom. I think we got him on the record a couple of times.
Because I've always found it so underwhelming. I mean, again, this is where like this is a good example, by the way, what the scene would be like if I wasn't in it. Is I can only do the stuff that I followed, right? Like, I only know the basics about RPK. I didn't follow Source that closely. Dude, I find it disgusting that in CSGO, we have all these events, right, that never stop sucking Forest's dick. Never shut the fuck up about Neo. You never hear a word about RPK being one of the goats of Source. Like, no, this guy was literally, as far as I know, again, I wasn't from the game. If you're making the list of, like, GOAT players in Source, it's like RPK, Shocks, and then we can start arguing, like, maybe Guardian, maybe fucking I don't exist, and something. And that, like, this guy, he never even gets that due, mate. No one ever mentions he's some, like, legendary player.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of the problem is that when we started, you know, down that road at the start of the game, you know, the Source play. But first of all, the game was considered to be a Source knockoff because it was on the engine.
Yes. And
so people were expecting the very games team at the time to dominate on that basis. They weren't expecting the Swedes, obviously the NIP guys, to be the emergent #1 team. And then there was still a lot of 1.6 versus Source rivalry because 1.6 had been artificially kept alive for a while. There was still even a lot of ill feeling, incredibly, even though we're talking about 2012. There was a lot of ill feeling about the way CGS went down, which was that, you know, funnily enough, I was just talking about it with Frod today for an interview I recorded. You know, basically, the 1.6 community felt there was like a concerted effort to kill 1.6 and make Source the dominant game, even though 1.6 was the better game. So there was a lot of that tribalism still at the early days of CSGO, and it doesn't really go away until the skins arrive. And by which point, as you rightly say, no one really chronicles the history of Source. I'm the guy that remembers it. I went to almost every fucking Source event of note. And
dude, it even kills me because everyone tells me all the time as a shit comeback, right? Anyone could do your job. Fucking it, chance would be a fine thing. Where are they? Where are they? I tell you why they don't do it. You know, it's the most thankless task of all time.
Of course.
Like, try writing an article now about Source from fucking 2010. No one's going to click that motherfucker. If I do that, guys, I have to do some videos on the side that are me telling you that this is shit and he should be fired to get the fucking money to allow me to then have time to waste my time doing a thing about 2010 Source. Like, there's no money in it, you morons.
I think I did. I think I've probably got on the old hard drive. I think I probably got a complete history of Very Games that I wrote. I covered all the great like Source teams and did like mini histories for them, and I'm pretty sure Very Games must have been one, as they were basically our Astralis at the end. Various iterations, various players. They always seem to find, you know, talent to come in, including, you know, obviously launching MBK's career back when he was like a 15-year-old AWPer or something. But anyway, you know, so to make it absolutely clear, there was a period of 4 years where this Very Games team was dominant, and RPK was in and out of it because he did play with KRL, another legendary French in-game leader, for a time in a team called Nameless. But at the end, I would probably say the last 2 years of Source, almost every MVP list included RPK, and he won probably, I would say, conservatively, let's say 65% of them. Maybe 70%. He was fucking god.
Wasn't he kind of like a Cold Zero character where it's like now he just wins every clutch, he's just like plodding, but he just consistent the whole time, etc.
Oh, mate, his style was explosive. He was he was like the white. He could clutch for sure, obviously. If you were in a 1v1 with RPK, just fucking F10. It's a waste of time. But what made RPK so good was how fucking explosive and aggressive he was on his CT sides. He's the guy who runs down Banana and kills 3 of you before you've got a flash off. He didn't give a fuck. And this is how we got this is where the whole Le Tank meme comes from. It's not just because he's a big guy. It's because he fucking trundled towards you like a fucking turret of doom and would just fuck you up. It was ridiculous. I mean, I can't say enough good things about this guy. Did it all, by the way, like not speaking English very great, and obviously played almost exclusively in French teams, but didn't like I say, never got into any drama, none of that. Like head down, would always do what he was told, played under legendary in-game leaders, studied his craft, was just a delight to play with and a delight to watch. I mean, like it is a tragedy that there's a lot of amazing Source players that will never get the shine that they deserve. RPK was arguably the greatest Source player of all time. There are a couple of names in there that I would throw about, and there's a couple of forgotten names from that weird midpoint, PHP, guys like that.
Classic, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, RPK was amazing. And listen, the reason I'm talking about all of that is because I hope he doesn't go and play Valorant or anything like that. Just, you're 31, your career is astounding, you are amazing. People will, me and Duncan will make sure you get remembered as you should be.
For sure.
But in his statement, he did say, I'm going to have a think about what I want to do next. And it's like, brother, don't play CSGO in another team. There's not another, you know, really, really good French team out there. You might end up in an international lineup. It won't work as well. You might, you know, RPK is a king, and he should go out on top and not play Babby's first FPS or anything like that. It would sully the legacy a little bit for me. If he goes out now like a champ, then hands down, you've just witnessed one of the greatest careers in any FPS discipline of all time.
I mean, on the latter point, like, look, I know what you mean, like your lasting memory, you don't want to be Valorant set, but whatever, it's his life, he can do what the fuck he wants. If he goes to make some money doing that, of course. Like I could see a world where if he has to do something, if I had a choice, if he can play Valorant or stay in CSGO, if they maybe make some French team, which I don't think they're doing, of like NBK, Kenny S, and they somehow chuck him in, whatever, that could be something at least. There's potentially some legs. As you say, there's almost no point doing it national lineup. In fact, as a random aside, because I know people haven't thought this through, I know because G2 went international, some people might now be like, but does this mean Vitality will go national? Their coach doesn't want to speak English in any context. That ain't going to happen. Yeah. Like that particular team, the mixture of Ziwu and Extaz, I mean, I don't think there's any chance that team goes international. So in my opinion, they stay French. But let's be real. G2 now is just an international team. I don't care how many French players they have in the team. The trend for that team is just going to be more international as long as Nico stays in the team. So you're right. Unless they make some sort of like rejects who are available, like the ones I just mentioned, and there's enough names to make a team, there's no point going and playing for whoever the fuck play like that. Like the level that Kyo plays on now, fair play if he wants to play, but like, that isn't even professional as far as I'm concerned. That should almost be like semi-pro. It's below the cut-off. So I get what you mean. But it's weird. The real sad thing is, like I say, there isn't really to this day anything that truly actually celebrates the great players. And by the way, people like ESL doing cynical sponsor-driven things where to draw attention to ESL Cologne or kind of, you know, they put someone in a Hall of Fame, but they put like 5 people in 4 years. That isn't a real legitimate thing. And the worst thing about that, the worst thing, Dickhead Carmack and Ulrich and the Ralph and all those guys, if you're listening, is you have actually sullied esports history. Because when you then abandon that esports Hall of Fame in about 3 or 4 years and like 9 people went in it and then it's just forgotten, you essentially showed you didn't care about esports history. Because if you did, you only set a project like that up or a Lifetime Achievement Award type thing if it can actually have legs and run. If you've got like the funding to make like a 10, 20-year run so you can celebrate the history of the game. What I've realized, by the way, this is why I bring this up, is this is just another area where it's time for me to stop complaining about things I can actually do. Like, here's what happens, right? Just like I said, I had that epiphany about the esports awards. If I'm the one talking 60% of the time and then they make their vote based on what I said, why don't I just give the award to who I think deserves the award? So in the same way, HLTV isn't in any way to do with Valve or some of the tournaments, but they give you a medal that they say was awarded and it now has status. I want to do that. I might do an award show. I would like to do something like this. I would like, I hope with a future company I'm potentially involved with now, to have like a Hall of Fame where I just induct 10 people a year and I find the most eligible people. I'll use my skill set where each person will have like a whole write-up of their career and what they did. And I'll just make it. But the key thing is, if I do it, as I said about the ESL one, I wouldn't just do it fly by night. Like, I'll do it this year and then quit. If you do it, you got to commit to it. You got to do it for like 10 years. You've got to get all the great players in and make... Because I hate the fact that, like, we've sort of gone a little bit further on that. Like, for example, obviously everyone made a big deal about Get Right retiring, but we're nowhere close to the respect that the legendary players deserve, in my opinion. Like, no, I want to see them really go out with the big fanfare, you know.
Yeah, underlined by the point that when Get Right was interviewed, as you said, you know, by the BBC, they went, and I'm here with Valorant professional. I was like,
exactly.
Hell, yeah. They just don't get it.
That would be like interviewing Maradona going, and I'm here with cocaine enthusiast, Diogo Maradona. Like, not really the main thing, though, is it?
No.
Although he sort of did push the lines on that one.
Well, I mean, actually, yeah, maybe 50-50. Like, no, but like, you know, it's ridiculous. But it's why I never understood as well. I see a lot of people bang on you and go, he called himself a historian, but anyone could be a historian. And it's like, well, first of all, it's obviously a label, not like a stolen valor from an academic, you know, setting. But the thing that always blows my mind about that is like, don't you see how valuable it is that people are willing to do that? Like, there's no narrative thread throughout our industry if we don't. And what does that say, you know? Don't you want to know, like, when you're watching Valorant or whatever the cool kids are telling you to watch, don't you want to know where those players come from? How are you going to know? Don't you want, cheats, for example, can't change their name, move to another game and cheat in that game? How are you going to know? The history's mega important, and people who take it upon themselves to be part of that history, especially in an era where websites just go under and disappear.
Of course.
What's that? 10 years of fucking writing? Gone? Yeah, forever. Where's Got Frag? Gone forever.
Mate,
all
I
the
once
demos,
did a
all
list.
the stats,
At
gone.
the end of 1.6, I did a list of like players based on like, and lineups based on prize money won, right? And I made it the most comprehensive list possible. And to get some of that data, Richard, I had to literally crawl a fucking Russian website using Google Translate, and it probably took me about 16 straight hours to get all the information. And here's all you need to know. I should probably do a stream one time just as like a flex. This is what the flex would be. So you know the famous refrain goes like this: anyone can just look it up on Wikipedia's. I'll take you to Wikipedia, the #1 source for information in the history of CSGO, and I could just show you instantly off the top of my head like 10 things that they don't even have right.
Yeah.
And the problem is, the only person who knows it's wrong is me, and I don't edit with Wikipedia, so it'll just never be corrected. Like, I could go and show you where they've got like the wrong lineup winning the tournament, or this guy wasn't in the team at that time, or you don't even have information for this turn. Like, there's tons missing, yeah. But anyway, to get back to the original point, like, yeah, basically the problem I have is this. I know RPK has sort of like a cult following because of like the Latank thing and the fact that he's sort of like, basically his whole swag the last few years was like, he's better than his stats look, which is an interesting angle. The problem with that is, though, that's not how I want people to remember someone who at one point was at the absolute top of the game. Like, if you were basically the Cold Zero or Simple of your game, that has to be how people remember you. It's that you remember them at the best, don't you? Come on.
Yeah. So, right, I'm just going to take a quick break. I need to get more water because my throat's absolutely tanning. I don't know if while I'm just doing that, I'm going to turn the camera off as well, Sam, so be ready for any changes there. But yeah, if you want to talk about the player that's coming in, Kyojin, he's not a very experienced or tenured player. It looks like it's another part of the project where X-Taz is looking to develop some talent here. And like I say, I'll just kill my camera for a sec. We can cut this out of the VOD, and I'll be right back.
How long do you need? 5 minutes?
I've got to run downstairs to the garage.
Yeah, all right. I'll fill something then.
All right, okay, nice. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, basically, the main thing with this move is, I think Richard nailed it with the last part. Like, this isn't, like, I don't know the sub-top French scene, as they say, unfortunately, in Counterstrike, because we're using fucking broken pidgin English to communicate. Hence why, in the modern day, even people who speak fucking native English are going, he is not top one. You mean number one, or you mean the best, you fucking idiot. There's no such thing as top one, is there? Like, how could it be top? It's just one. There's no bottom one, is it, you daft cunt? Like, it's a different premise. It doesn't make sense. Like, so anyway, you say top 5, don't you, to me? You are in the top 5. So when they do that, right, I don't know the sub-top scene. So maybe this guy has some promise. I haven't heard about him. If I look at this move to me is the Nevera fucking Masuta move just done again. Which if people don't understand, it's not that like Extaz and the players in Vitality really think that like Masuta at that point in time is better than Kiyoshiba. No, they know he isn't. But the point is this. Why would you go and get a player like Kiyoshiba, who, as far as we can tell, he's been to a million teams, he's not wanted, and therefore, even if he has skills, he's not really the player who would fit your culture or how you want to play the game. To me, Vitality is an org that is about, this is why, in a way, I'm glad Alex left. It's an org that isn't about the IGL. It's not one of those ones where the IGL defines the character and every aspect of the moves and how they play. It's a coach's team. That's why, actually, Vitality is the org that did what Astralis claimed they were going to do. It really is about the infrastructure. The org is what has had the success. Now, listen, Zimu does the heavy lifting, but the org is what built the team around him, in my opinion. So if you look at that team, I actually think this is one where they've done this move, just like the Masuta and the Nevera one, because when you get a player that you think has some potential, but is very, very raw and fresh and hasn't been used at all, you as a coach can really put in the hard yards and craft that guy into the player you want. You can start, and he hasn't even learned certain bad habits. He doesn't even know things about tier 1. He's going to listen to you, and it's not like he has 5 options of teams he can go to if he doesn't like the way that you're doing it. He pretty much has to listen to you. He has to take on board what you're doing, and you're so high above where he is in terms of experience, understanding the game, actually in terms of what you can offer him, in terms of the spot to play with legends like fucking Apex, incredibly good players like Ziwu, people like Shocks. Like, in this scenario, everything's on the coach's side here. So I actually get why they're doing this. I'm actually very, very interested, because after seeing some of the other moves, they weren't long-term moves. Neither of those players, I mean, Nevera isn't even in the team anymore, and Masuta sort of dropped off again. I have to say, like, Extaz has done so many sick moves. I'll trust him in the short term. I'll give this a go, because I just see this as he's bringing him in to just craft a new player into a potential to fit this lineup. Because I was basically saying, I think this is like to me, this is one of the few teams I don't look at and define by the IGL. I think Vitality is like a coach's team. So I think they've just done this move to get like another fresh player you can mold into whatever he envisions should be the replacement for RPK.
Well, it's quite telling about where we are as well. Like, you know, now's the time where they're having to take this gamble and develop this young French talent. RPK is not going to be the last legend to retire fully.
No.
So, you know, people need to be prepared for that. So anyway, we'll I'm sure you've handled that admirably. I could hear a little bit of it downstairs.
Yeah. It was just like a mini thoughts.
Yeah, it was. It was Thorin's Thoughts, a classic. We can talk about Flamey. Has been benched. He will not be competing for Na'Vi at the RMR tournament at all in any capacity.
I think I could tilt you.
Bit has been upgraded to full-time player, and loads of people were messaging me going, look what you've made them do. Look what you made them do. Why do you hate Na'Vi so much? And it's like, first of all, this doesn't even fix the problem in my mind. Like, it's one part of a very complex equation. They're still coached by Blade. They're still going to play that outrageous, stupid style of theirs. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a step in the right direction. Who fucking knows?
I've got a piece of info for you, and actually this will help you because it's a fucking cross promotion with your sponsor, right? He has one of those videos where, you know, they do all those features, right? I'm pretty sure did this. Oh, was it Blast? I'm not sure. It was one of the two, right? They did a feature where they had like Flamey, and maybe it was Blast actually. I think it might have been Ryan Hart who was speaking.
Yeah, the one about how he knows everyone's birthday.
Yeah, where they're trying to ask you, like, do you know the first names? And he just volunteers that he knows everyone. And he doesn't exactly what he means is that he knows sort of like their horoscope almost. He knows like what star sign they were born under, basically. But he does know them. He knows them for like all these players in a row, which I will say, you could actually cheat, Flamey. Like, you could just have that on the second monitor. But we're going to assume you don't. Like, it doesn't seem as though you did that. You know, it'd be pretty elaborate to have set that up. Right? The reason why that actually did mildly tilt me, Richard, is because when I watched that, I'm like, Flamey, how do you know all of that, mate, but you're not just like good at the game that you play professionally? Like, there's something going on with your allocation of time here, what you're interested. Like, how is that what you retain? You retain that, but not all the strats. Like, that just tilts. I know it's such a minor thing, but that just tilted me when I saw that video. Because if I was simple, I'd be like, you know what, Flamey? Maybe that should be your job in Navi, remembering everyone's birthday. I'll get the fuck out the team, get someone in here who knows Counterstrike. I want a guy who comes in and goes, and you go, do you know when Elijah was born? And he goes, nah, no, to bang your fucking head off. Simple goes, all right then, now we've got a player. There we go.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a weird situation because it's like, you know, again, Flamey's another example of those dudes where it's like, you know, he's a nice dude and we've stuck up for him multiple times in the past, you know, most notably in like 2016 when fucking Zeus was just fucking shouting at him all the time and he looked miserable. But it's like, enough's enough, you know. He said in 2018, he tweeted out in 2018, I'm going to fucking improve my game and get us back to winning ways and all. Like, wait, man, it's ridiculous. Like, this now, but put it this way, I don't think it matters if Bit's in. Bit's still got to do the playbook. They've still got to do the strats.
I don't know why people are doing this thing. I think it's cause of Vitality, unfortunately, because the Vitality sixth man initially did actually like help elevate them temporarily, and they were winning tournaments that they weren't winning before. Because here's the thing, right? I get why people are hyped for Bit because it means no Flamey, but I don't think Bit is that sick a player. He seems all right. Like, I don't mind him as a trial player, etc. But it's still another player that you look and you go, is this the only one you can get out of all this CIS talent? Like, where are all the good ones? Yeah. None of them allowed to ever play in Navi.
Yeah, well, evidently not. And that's what I mean about it being a weird situation. It's like,
why have they never addressed that, by the way? Think about this, right? The CIS community, including all these clout chasers who claim, Richard, remember, people like fucking Overdrive, to be revealing secret information. They love to pretend they're in the know. Why has not a single one of them ever, I mean ever, as far as I know, publicised why Navi never gets any of the good players? Notice that's never been even addressed as far as I can tell.
You can't talk about anything.
I know, it's obviously so much shady, isn't it? It's one of those ones where it's like the elephant in the room, isn't it?
I'm gonna get like I'm gonna write an article about it, I think, at some point, because the fucking Navi Defense League is unbelievable, and you can't say anything about them. You can't say anything, even vaguely critical. As bad as it gets, the only thing you're allowed to say is, they didn't play that great today, but they'll bounce back. That's it. If you say anything other than that, then all of the CIS region come out and say you're a liar, you're making stuff up. They write hit pieces about you. They'll tweet about you. Why they'll tweet it passively aggressively in Russian, telling their fans why no one should listen to anything you say without addressing you directly, because it's like they're the jewel in the crown of the CIS region, and they have got to be protected. They have got to be protected. And they also do know that there is an army of, like, you know, almost like BTS or something, where they just will go after you in the most ridiculous, aggressive way. And they know that happens. And what that does is it discourages people from speaking up about it. I mean, if you go look at that fucking Cybersport article or whichever shit website it was, a 17-year-old fucking journalist is writing an article that just regurgitates all of the lies about me down the years, takes everything Senya says as the gospel truth. I did a stream basically showing the video that proves that not only is this guy not capable of doing basic research, but also Senya's a liar. Because he said, oh yeah, we didn't kick those PCs. It happened once, and when it happened, we all laughed about it. And there's a video of Get Right saying, you've been doing it all fucking game, fucking stop. He's absolutely mauled.
I was actually stood there at that match because I worked for SK Gaming, and from what I remember, it was at least twice, because I know one of them was in like a 1v1 or something, and it was one of those ones where even after the first one, they told them, like, do not kick the PC, like, you're basically kicking my mouse coming out of the PC. So the idea that after they said that, Zeus like accidentally kicked it out while the guys in a one, like, that just beggars belief, guys.
Mate,
like, I know
it happened 2 or 3 times, and every time when they were in clutch situations, it was egregious.
Shameless, isn't it?
Yeah, so shameless. So anyway, You know, that's what happens if you just criticize Navi even mildly. What is wrong with saying a coach who's been a coach for a year needs to go so they can change up their tactical style and actually delivers more
these
than
guys
one
never followed
trophy a year?
football.
I know, it's so mental, isn't it?
In football, right, you can finish third in the league, win a cup, and go like top 8 in Europe, and people are like, fire him, get him out.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's so mad. I mean, put it this way, if you want an example from this Premier League season, just think about how fucking biased these cunts are, these London BBC journalists. They were publishing article after article about why Arteta, who has Arsenal at mid-table, and at one point they were just above the relegation zone when they were fucking writing this. They were going, Arteta's really got a hard job and he's transforming Arsenal, but look at the squad he's got. We've got to contextualise it. Meanwhile, in the same breath, they were saying, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's lost the dressing room, and him and Paul Pogba need to go if Man United are ever going to do anything. Now, one of them is still technically in the fucking title race and is second in the fucking league, and the other has just had a fucking mediocre throwaway season. You know, there's no rhyme or reason to the critique, so I can understand the frustration. But holy shit, you've been coached for over a year, and now you've gone
with the best player
backwards.
ever in prime form. That's the part that can never be taken out, by the way, of any discussion about Navi. This is like, you know, like, listen, coaches even say it themselves. When they see a great player, they'll be like, give me him and I would do X. Okay, how about if I gave you the best player ever, the most self-sufficient great player ever, in prime form? And here's the thing, sometimes you can have the best player ever and he might, you know, have like, he's good at this. This guy just never goes off form. Never. It's essentially the exception of the rule if he has an okay game, right? At that point in time, that's one variable taken care of. Now you're just working on the other ones. All the other coaches, by the way, aren't doing that. Beyond certain odd names, most other coaches in the scene, they're still like, is my star player on board, though? Is he still in good form? How's he doing this month? Now, the other guy, you've already got one take. Like, Blade's job literally gets easier than some of the other coaches. So at that point in time, even a 4th place finish for me is a failure. Like, I'm sorry, you are supposed to win everything. Yeah. Everything.
And, you know, meanwhile, they were all going, well, look, how can you say there's a problem? We're number 1 in the world. Yeah, you're ranked number 1 in the world.
In the worst era for number 1 rank ever.
Yeah, you're ranked number 1 in the world, and you've just finished 5th, 6th at Katowice and 9th to 12th at Pro League. What can... Like,
by the way,
I'll
just say this now because I'm getting so sick of this. As someone who did rankings, essentially rankings show you what a team's form was over the past. It tells you nothing about now and the going on. Because if anyone knows this, it's a very famous detail actually. You often get, if you're not a team that has a dominant period, you often get to number 1 actually after you've fallen off being the best. And when you're the best, you're probably ranked number 4 because the results haven't shown yet. The results you do now show up primarily in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, you know, you got to watch them slide down the rankings. Like, don't get me wrong, credit to them for finally doing something about it. But you'll also notice he's only benched and they've only committed to 1 event. I just think Flamey's, I don't know what mad, it reminds me a bit of fucking Angel and Hellraisers. Like, I guess some players just get to represent an org forever, no matter how bad they play, no matter what's going on. You're just locked in. Like, it's mad. Anyway, let's also talk about the Evil Geniuses news. This is after again a disappointing Pro League. They are bringing in Michu, who obviously was out there in free agency.
Previously tied with OG, if people remember that story.
Yeah. I mean, well, I actually heard they'd sort of agreed in principle, and then EG kind of EG kind of swooped in. Again, I only heard that off a couple of people when I was like poking around the sides on it, but who knows? But anyway, so the prevalent sentiment is that he'll be replacing Tarek, who obviously sort of had a poor performance in the series they lost, and tweeted about, man, I feel like shit, you're kicking me when I'm down, and everyone on Reddit was going, yeah, God, yeah, well, shouldn't we start being nicer to people? Now here's 3,000 comments telling Richard Lewis to kill himself because of tweets. So yeah, you know, it does seem that the Tarek era is over, and I'm guessing, obviously, everyone's speculated about this. Tarek will probably, like a lot of NA players, just simply due to lack of opportunity rather than anything else, will probably move across to Valorant.
I know they tweeted at each other, but listen, if 100 Thieves is not the team that picks up Tarek, y'all don't understand marketing the way people think you do, because Tarek basically is nature. Like he just they have a very similar personality. Like another thing I've never understood about. Dude, one thing I've never understood about either of them is this. I'm just going to say it right now because it's by the numbers. I don't even get what the personality part that they supposedly bring to the equation is. Like, in person, Tarek's a cool guy, can be funny.
Yeah, he's a legend.
I don't get anything on camera from him. For me, there's nothing there. Like, it's not that funny. It's sort of like simple. It's almost like him and Nadeshot are the type of people who just like verbalize what a Twitch chat memes and then Twitch chat eats it up. Like, I don't get it. Like, it's why whenever people would say, like, the famous one was like Shroud's like personality of the year, I'm like, what personality? I know that's not what personality of the year means, but it's like I'm being witty when I say that. Like, to me, the most on-brand move ever would be like Tarek should be in other things. He's just born to be an influencer for a team like that, isn't he? He'd probably do a great job at it.
Oh, he'll crush it, mate. I think when Tarek goes to Valorant, regardless of anything he does performance-wise, the fact that he's always had a good community. We all remember when he was, streaming with his shirt off and everything, and he kind of made a pro career essentially out of being an entertaining streamer, and a good player as well, obviously. Got an opportunity, and things haven't been good the last year or so. And I would have said, based on him tweeting that stuff out there, I think he probably identifies it. I know for a fact he's obviously been playing Valorant, on the side. To what degree, I'll let everyone else make that, assessment, and they can have their own thoughts about it. But I think he knows that right now, in the early days of Valorant, you don't even necessarily need to be an amazing player at that game to get very close to the top. And also, it is an influencer, heaven, because it's the fresh new game. It's all the young kids are there. All the big orgs are pushing it. All the NA orgs are pushing it. All the orgs that already have influencers, where they're almost more concerned with that, are pushing it. And so as a result, Tarek will go over there and absolutely crush it. Like, Tarek will probably end up, if he goes to Valorant, being like the next Shroud character, where he suddenly ascends and becomes too big for... he'll be like the next Courage or something, 2 million followers. Like, I could totally imagine that. And listen, you got to do what makes you happy in life. For me, I'll still, with all of that said, all of those positive things said, because Tarek's a good lad, he's come on the No Majors Club and everything. With all that said, I'll still say this EG team's been a fucking joke for a long time. And it's always going to leave a bit of a bad taste in my mouth that they had all the support. They got sent to Europe early doors in the pandemic. They had a great coach brought in. They've had everything they wanted. They've had a public org that's come out and said, like, listen, we're not dropping a team. We're not going to Valorant. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. They've literally took all of the flack for this, for their poor performances, and they've still just given them nothing. They've even brought in Obo, a player out there in free agency, and it's like, okay. Now is another player. So it does leave a bad taste in my mouth that roster, that lineup, didn't do more, especially in the last 6 to 9 months of its life. I think
I would even personally, mate, I would tie it into the whole thing of players looking with one eye to Valorant and low-key moonlighting and that shit on the side. Because I tell you what, if I had to pick a team right now where in a year from now, 2 of the active lineup are actually Valorant players, EG's my first pick.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And some of that isn't just speculation, let's put it that way. Like, by the way, I won't say much more because we're in a world where, like, this isn't one of those ones. I'm not trying to publicize news here. I'm just telling you things I've heard. Put it this way, based on what I know, that Ethan had some fucking gall to try and characterize it publicly the way he did towards you. He essentially wanted to straight up have his cake and eat it. For real. Yeah. That's what he was doing. He did do all the things Richard said and implied. He just wanted to do it all, but get none of the backlash and therefore also get praised for not having been playing that. Like, fuck off. Just fuck right off. And the reason why I bring this up now is because EG is the example. You know what? Bag on Team Liquid all you want. Team Liquid has done all the same things EG has. And what they're in great form again. They're one of the better teams. I know everyone's going to get dinged at SCP. I'm like, I don't care about one result. Like, in general, they are one of the better teams in the world. If I had to pick someone to win a tournament out the next 5 or 6, they'd be the only NA team I'd pick. They're the only one that has any comparison. I don't count Fury as an NA team in that sense. So basically, like, you look at their team, they've generally done things the way I'd want it to be done. EG is the team where, as you say, they had every positive, they've even got to keep the same lineup most of the time. Yeah. And as far as I've heard, loads of them are lacking motivation, and maybe some of them are thinking about Valorant, or some of them are already fucking with Valorant, or some of them are just like, I'm sick of... By the way, here's the one that's going to kill you, Richard. These big NA teams that are going to Europe, the sentiment where a whole bunch of the players are like, oh, it's just shit having to go to Europe all the time. Oh, is it better to just have no scene whatsoever? Would you rather be sitting where Triumph is right now? This is one of those things where it's like NA players don't know how good they had it for that long. You don't know how mad it is that eventually CS got so big that from 2016 on, you could just chill in America literally the second best region and get all the action. There's a universe in esports where CS was always like it is now, because this is what 1.6 was like at the end. It's just a European phenomenon, and all you can do is travel if you're from NA. Guess what? If you're from NA in that game, you're now the Australians. You have to travel, or you're always on the road, as it were. Like, that could be the... So if you top pros aren't cut out for that, I'll tell you right now, just get out. We don't need you. I'll take, like, if someone like Zephyr or Floppy is wanting to do that, I don't know if they are, I'm just giving an example, let them have a shot. I'll take those guys having a crack over you, unmotivated, and just chilling like, I might just quit in 2 months if the results go bad. Well, with that fucking attitude, the results are going to go bad, aren't they? So just cut it out right now. Just save everyone some time. Go get your Valorant money if you want it.
This brings me to the point where it's like, listen, I totally get why Michu has made the decision to join Evil Geniuses, legendary organization, tenured. Obviously, I'd say even on current form,
salary's going to be banging.
Salary's bigger. The luster, I would even go as far as to say, to play alongside some of these players, maybe over going to OG. I get it, right? I totally get it. But what I'm worried about is for him, is what are you really getting yourself into? Because, if Tarek is the guy who makes room, and that's what a lot of people are thinking. Okay, cool. Now you got Stan without his muse, bedding in 2 new players. Zeus having to work with him in tandem. You got Cirque. Cirque's really been down on himself, disappointed with his own form. He's one of those players, I think, at this stage, even though I never believe it's panacea, he's the one who would benefit from the sports psychologist. I think he's really lacking confidence. And Breezy must know he's too good for the players around him at this current moment in time. And is literally the best thing about this team by a long distance. And so, as a result of that, I think this is a risk from Michu, because I think if he goes to OG, and I know they had a great result today as well, if he goes to OG, I think he stands out as like the bona fide star. Like, he's the guy who fucking will absolutely shine in that team. In this team, if everyone stays the same and they stay demotivated and they stay playing at the level they're at, holy shit, Michu, your back's going to be real fucking sore real quick, because it's going to be you and Breezy basically doing all the heavy lifting, and, perhaps not even a motivated in-game leader to figure out what's best for you, because he might just be around the corner thinking about Valorant as well. So I think this is a risk, actually. This reminds me a little bit of when, like, I was the super unpopular opinion when I said Nico doesn't fix G2. And I think Michu is a fantastic player and deserves his shot, but I think this is a poison chalice.
Put it this way, the main reason why this move isn't a great move, it's actually a good move for me on paper, like you said, the org, the chance to play at a higher level, blah, blah, blah. I even know, by the way, if people are wondering, where's all this, like, why is there like a bidding war with Mihu? He's actually a player where people behind the scenes, like the other players and coaches, all think he's underrated, basically. They all think he's way better than the fans think in that sense. I get why, because the fans just see him playing in Envy and they go, they must all be shit if they're in Envy. It's like, no, the worst thing about Envy was they actually took a couple of good players like Calyx and fucking Mihu and then just put them with people like fucking Nifty and Moose and these that you never want to see him play with. Like, they were being held down by those guys. So certainly, I actually think I can understand why a coach like Zeus would want him, by the way, because Mihu is a player who is not just an entry, he can be a hard entry, and he is just a soldier. You tell him he'll run through the wall 10 times, he'll run through the wall 10 times until he goes, is there a door? Like, you'll just do what you say. Coaches love those guys. But in line with what you're saying, that's why it's really dangerous to join a team like this. Because I tell you who's going to look really fucking bad in a team that doesn't play together and doesn't get big results. The hard entry. He's going to be the guy who gets the mad stats that are terrible. Because guess what? You're the guy running in first when Simple and Zebra were holding that angle. And you're the first frag in the highlight clip. That's a great way to make your stats look shit. And the problem is, that style of play, that's why it's so brutal. Because that style of play in a good team, they're the sleeper OP that help you win the tournament. In a bad team, you just end up looking like the guy who's shit and everyone will say, cut him. And this is my problem. You nailed it there. One of the problems and what I hate about this move is it's like when they brought Nico to G2. Because when they brought Nico to G2, it doesn't matter how Nico frags. That won't help Kenny S get out of a slump.
No, of course
so this is a thing that they've always done in Counterstrike that I always hated. Because back in the day, players made the moves, and there's only 2 reasons players made moves. Status or how good they think the player is, right? So you're either a friend of mine, I like you, or I think you're really good at the game. So what they would always do, I've always given this analogy, is to use a football analogy. When the striker doesn't score enough goals, they kick out the defender and bring in another striker. Well, that'll never stop that striker from being shit. Yeah. So in this scenario, here's my problem, right? Let's say Mihu joins. Why does that make Cirque hit AWP shots now? The problem right now isn't Tarek. Listen, Tarek's had plenty of problems. He's not a good player. But my bigger problem is that my fucking star Oprah's getting eaten alive. So I agree with you, mate. It isn't the fix to what it isn't the fix. Like, this has to be one fix. Like, maybe me who can join, be integrated, and be a useful element, but that ain't going to fix that Cirque problem. So there's still got to be, there's got to be probably another roster move or some sort of internal change, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I saw obviously a long thread about when this move was announced about how, like, you know, you're lying, I'm lying, Sponge is lying, that, you know, we heard rumors that EG were considering just not having the team anymore.
Why would I literally, as I've said, be out there shopping the entire lineup to Flashpoint Orgs?
I don't know.
If they wanted to stay in the game.
But, you know, I mean, what this does suggest at least is, I mean, I'd put it this way. While I think Michu will be on a good salary, I definitely don't think he's going to be on Tarek money. And, you know, maybe they do transition into being a more, let's say, you know, economic value proposition.
You know, by the way,
a more European.
Let me get your take on this. Let me ask you a question for this. On that exact topic, though, here's my question to you, right? Do you think that is also a factor as to why basically the big names don't get signed and it's just up and comers or people who never made it? Because here's the thing, you can bring them into like EG, for example, and maybe you can just give them half the salary. I mean, it's saving measure. You know?
Oh, yeah, look, it's a fact right now. The reality is this: we've seen it in NA. There's no money. There's no money coming around for CS. In fact, if you go talk to a sponsor now, they'll even ask you, you know, oh, what you doing with Valorant? What's your Valorant team doing?
Yes.
And you know, you go, oh, we've got a successful CS team. And now all of those memes that people used to talk about, the supposed experts they were talking about 2-3 years ago, but it says terrorist in game, so you know, like you've got the US Army as a fucking sponsor on events, right? And they're going, yeah, just this real life violence stuff just makes us all, you know, it's like, oh, you fucking idiots, America. But anyway, the point being that now that you are having to like save money. You are having to, because the sponsors aren't coming along to the same degree, and they don't want to sponsor this game, and they're using that as either an excuse or it's a genuine perception, because now we have an FPS that actually is functionally the same as Counterstrike in a lot of ways, but is very PG-13. We've got Riot Games that are committing to it being, you know, a very kind of PG-13 game, and being more friendly towards the younger audience, which of course they want to get you in young, don't they? They want to get you while you're young and you still make you fall in love with the game and turn you into a fan for life. I heard that a million times from every fucking sports owner, sports broadcaster. You know, back when I was working at E-League, it was like, yes, our older audience is falling away. Young kids don't like sports as much. We want to be the hub that they all come to. So people are very aware of that. And as a result, unfortunately, especially the teams that would be traditionally reliant on their sponsorship, what they're having to do is basically cut corners. And we're seeing a lot of that. That's what this is. That is what this all is. And people don't like it. You know, people are saying, look, if EG wanted to leave, why are they spending big? I guarantee they've saved a bundle here. You know, so, but I'm not saying that's the entire reason. I think, you know, you're in Europe, you want a European player now, probably, rather than fly someone else out from America. You want somebody who probably is, you know, highly regarded by all the players. And like you say, low key, loads of players have been touting Michu and like wanting him in. You know, the idea that there is a bit in war for a player who was deemed to not be good enough to replace the Virtus Pro players, like, just a few years ago, you know, that should tell you all you need to know about the way the scene's gone. It's not a reflection on him. It's just a reflection on how times change. And yeah, I think, put it this way, I think there might be another roster change on EG. They've got, the other thing I've think about as well, maybe they have been tempted to pull out, but they have contractual commitments. They're signed up to the Blast in June. They have to go to that. You know, there's money on the line.
Listen, mate, I thought when 100 Thieves was a member of the fucking Louvre agreement, that would mean something, but it didn't mean anything to them. So who the fuck knows what it means in the East world, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. But, well, I mean, listen, it might have cost them some money to get out. And Nature just thought, listen, it's worth it to do it. You know, even with the ESL Pro League model being so successful, it still only made them very modest profits. It's a profit, which is still amazing in esports. So yeah, I don't know, mate. I think probably what you'll see is maybe another roster change in a month or so. Could be an AWPer, who knows? And basically EG will become a bit more European centric, and that's that, you know. And yeah, cost cutting part of it, region part of it, pandemic stuff part of it, move to Valorant and NA part of it. There's so many factors, you know. While we are now getting ready for viewer questions, one last story we'll cover, and then we'll do the viewer questions and get the fuck out. Another mad long bumper edition episode. We were right again, of course. We've had the new international team announced: Flusher, Sunny, Esperanto, Calix, and of course, it's your boy Sergey. And this validates, I think, what we were talking about at the time when he left Ents and went to do his Finnish national service. I said, to bail at this time and to leave under these circumstances basically means you're fucking so sick of Ents. You would rather be in the army than play CS from your bedroom with that team. And everyone was going, you don't know, that's a bit mental. Well, here he is now. Here he is now. Back. And people are saying, you know, he might be on the AWP as well. Who knows, man?
Right, my problem with this lineup when I see it is this. If you're just doing like a HLTV forum type, look at each in-name individually, it's fire. This looks fucking amazing. The problem is this. How do these roles make any sense? Like, not only roles, but even like experience level, balance of like personalities. Like, I'll give you an example. Esperanto has mad skill, but can't unlock it at tier 1. Something's going on with his attitude, his mentality towards his teammates. Sergey has skills. He was a top 20 ranked player a few years ago. As far as I can tell, was activated by a certain IGL, didn't do it otherwise. So they're two players where, where's my veteran IGL that's going to fix them? Before everyone goes, but Flusher, mate, I'm sick of hearing about Flusher being an IGL. It's like MBK. You know what, motherfucker? Do it. Succeed, and then we'll have the conversation. How about that? Instead of you teasing me with it every year for 5 years and never properly committing and doing it and being an actual top player. Like, just because you were good at something else in the game doesn't mean you'll be the good at this. So it goes without saying, those are massive X's on the mark there. Then Sunny hasn't played that much, obviously, even in the last few months, etc. He hasn't been doing anything. Flush's was in terrible form when he left Fnatic. So who does that even leave? Like, you look at the lineup and like, it's like on paper, the names are good. There's potential they can put something together to be really good. I just don't know if this is the 5-man lineups that are there. I like the collection of players, and I hope most of them stay in CSGO, so I'm very happy for the news in that regard. The idea of some of these names going to Valorant or retire, I think would have been really tragic. Like, these are all names that should be playing tier 1 Counterstrike. I don't know about Flusher, but it depends what team he's in, I guess. But I have to say, the actual like idea of it fitting together as a team, I don't think it's as good as the names look at the moment, boys. Like, I have some real question marks about this one.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, again, this idea, I think I saw a clip as well from Flush's stream where he was saying that like he had the opportunity to like go over and maybe play with FaZe or something, have a trial with FaZe.
Okay.
But he didn't want to be he didn't want to be IGL of that team. That was when Nico was still in it, I think.
Oh, yes, that's right. Actually, Carrigan, on the episode of Stratbook I did, listed him. Like, basically, there was a period of time where I think it was Golden, Exist, and Flush, and they wanted all of those, and they just never got any as the IGL, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, when I look at this team, I'm like you. I don't think the blend is right. I don't think the roles make sense. I don't know how you're going to reconcile this. Like, I mean, if Sergey is the AWPer, like, you're giving up the number 13 in the world rifler from like 2 years ago to like,
exactly,
you know, to do that. I mean, don't get me wrong. You've got Calix and Sunny and Esperanto. They're all very good. Calix isn't even necessarily officially part of the team, so they might bring somebody else in. They might go for an AWPer. You know,
I've also heard from some of the people who've worked with Calix, etc. Like, he's a player where, again, it's like the Esperanto story. He has mad skills, but does he know how to make it work in a top tier 1 team and with certain teammates playing? Like, because as far as I know, in Space Soldiers, him and Zantaja did whatever they wanted. Like, it's not going to be like that in tier 1 Counter-Strike. So again, the real problem with this team is it's like it's a bunch of players who were very good, and then a bunch that haven't quite yet fully made it in terms of Sergey coming back. So it's like, it's a weird mix. It's very, very weird.
Yeah, it's a strange team. And, you know, the other problem they've got is, I mean, that team is not staying together if they can't find an org And this is the worst time to try and find an org probably ever of all time. So, can you imagine, let's say, I don't know, a team comes in for Sunny or Flusher or so, whoever the fuck, like OG, maybe it doesn't work out with one of their players, or they decide, fuck it, let's get Sergey after all, or whatever, and then they come in and they offer them a fucking salary and these guys need a home quickly if you even think this five's going to do it. And keep in mind, we already saw this roster, or a variation of it essentially touted back when Automatic was there, and look what he did. He fucked off to Valorant. These players aren't going to stay together.
By the way, since they claim they have an org, would you even be able to guess? Because I have nothing on this, mate. Like, I don't have any connection with Flash,
who the fuck would it be?
I don't know, man. That's the thing. Because as we've been talking about, the big orgs want to get out of CS if anything. So
yeah.
I'm worried personally. This is some like extreme mum type scenario where it's just some fucking cunt who has money, but it's just totally not trustworthy or whatever. I'm concerned it's going to be a new name. That's my worry.
Well, I mean, if it's a new name, I mean, I don't even know about that. Saying you have an org, by the way, you mean you got a source of money? That's what you mean. Because I can't see a single org in the top 30 of World Counterstrike that's dropping their current team to pick these guys up.
No, surely not.
So I don't know. Saying you got an org, I mean, it just sounds reminiscent of KNG. We've got a plan, doesn't it? At this stage. So I guess jury's out. Watch this space. Right, to move on to Patreon questions and get the fuck out of here. Another cheeky 3-hour podcast. So let's have a look. We've got Jerky's Minion, the legend. Who is it worse to be employed by? Nicola Nyholm, Foxconn, or Esports Talk? I don't even know what Foxconn is.
That's that was one of the famous factories in China where they were making the iPhones. And they would
the guy jumped out the window and the nets. Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean, evidently, Esports Talk doesn't seem to uphold any editorial standards whatsoever.
Yeah, by the way, that's one of
that must be nice.
That's one thing where even your own fans can annoy you, Rich. Because a lot of fans who are fans of me and you but don't necessarily know much about Esports Talk, their takeaway was like, wow, I can't believe those guys let their editorial standards slip in that video. And I just want to go, you are aware it's totally consistent with what they've been doing in all the videos, right? Like, that is just who they are. That is what they believe in. And that's like, by the way, if people don't know, they play the whole card of like, I'm not a journalist.
Yeah, no, yeah. They literally said that to me in my...
so they, as far as I can tell, they don't think there are like morals or professional standards. They just do whatever they want, so it's what you expect. So of the three, I mean, obviously the real answer is Foxconn. But,
yes,
I'll even say actually the Nicola Nyholm one, it's like you said before, even though I do know that a lot of those players didn't like the org and wanted to leave, bizarrely, I've never actually heard any of them talk shit about Nicola Nyholm. So I don't know what spell he's weaved over these cunts, but apparently they don't have a problem working for him,
Yeah. So, we'll wait and see. This will make you laugh as well, by the way. Someone in the thread from the last episode on Reddit, because obviously, you have to downvote all my content now for as long as you can remember.
And if you do, it's like you're a hero. You'll be remembered for centuries.
There was this great comment here. You got to love it. Somebody said, if Richard Lewis, who does he consider to be his audience, if not the CS community, right? Well, obviously, it's just my audience. And someone chimed in and said, my understanding is that his fan base are the people who pay by the numbers, and he thinks everyone else is just a leech.
By definition, they are.
No, but I don't even think that.
I do then. So assign that to me, is my opinion. You are all leeches. Yes.
Yeah. So what I...
By the way, so am I when I consume free content from people I pay fuck all and skip the ad. I'm a leech too, don't worry about it.
I've literally never said you can't complain about content you get for free. I've always said nobody has to pay me money to do this stuff. And when people offer to pay me money, I always say make sure you can afford it, especially during a pandemic. I've messaged people who've sent me big donations and been like, look, mate, I can't accept this, and sent it back. It's like, so I don't... People, what you have to remember is, like you say, apparently I'm the mentally ill one because I tweet, but I occasionally tweet, yeah, don't call me a cunt, you're a cunt. That makes me mentally ill. People inventing things that objectively they've never heard come out of my mouth. They're normal. That's where we're at. So
listen,
good job.
All you whales out there trying to send Richard a fucking bag and he just won't accept it. Listen, I don't have any qualms about that. And I tell you what, the second you send that money to me, there's no chargebacks. You're never getting it back. Even if you hate me a month, I'll never send you that a fucking red cent. Caveat emptor, motherfucker. Understand the saloon you've come into if you come me.
So this is Oki. In your opinion, what 1 or 2 small economical tweaks could be made to CSGO that you think would have a net positive effect on the current meta or play style, and why? An example, making Glock USP kills worth another $200 to make less double equals. I think right now, like Davey was in chat. We've talked about this recently with the economy. Like right now, there is something desperately wrong because I see CTs win pistols. And in the next round, I see a T4 spy every time.
Still the poison chalice.
Yeah, and very often the Ts have the better guns.
Yep.
Especially because CTs need utility, and it's like this is bananas how they've let it get this bad. The economy right now needs a complete fucking overhaul, you know, because the Ts seemingly have all the tools. You know, you've already got a gun that is very specialized and better for what you do for entries in the form of the AK. But then when you start looking into it, like, you know, Krieg versus Org and all the other stuff just across the board, like, you know, T's are just the objectively kind of like imbalanced.
Put it this way, there's a reason why no one complains about Nuke anymore, and it's actually just a symptom of this fucking economy, because now you get plenty of T rounds on Nuke.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's getting looked out 14-1 CT sides. That ain't happening.
Yeah. So, so I don't know. It just feels like, I mean, I'd want to rebuild it from the. I don't even think it's 1 or 2 tweaks at this stage, because remember, 1 or 2.
They all have a knock-on effect, exactly.
Yeah, 1 or 2 tweaks brought us to this point.
By the way, I'd even say this is an example of an area I'll speculate in, but actually, the real irony, by the way, this might even be a Clicks Phillip type area where maybe he knows more. Because tell you what, it's people like Sloth Squadron who actually they know everything about the engine. Or, I actually trust those guys. I'd rather know what they think about the economy. Like, what would they tweak? Because I found the same with weapon balance. When I asked the Sloth Squadron guy, who knows literally like how all the guns work and the inaccurate, he basically told me some things that as like a layman I would have been wrong about. Like I told him, like, I wish they'd change the pistols to like 1.6 where, you know, you could like reset between every bullet on the USB, and he's like, if you do that it will affect how the AK fires. And I was like, how though? Because I don't know how, you know, it's super complicated, guys, basically. So I agree, you need someone who like really knows what the fuck they're talking about with answers.
What me and David were talking about the other day, the big point of consternation is like how bad the FAMAS is in comparison to the Galil, and then the price point on the Galil has come down. So
the FAMAS is too expensive for sure.
Yeah, like what is it? Is it still 250?
Something like that, yeah.
And 1800 on a Galil, like that's fucking bonkers. And so, you know, even on those 4 spy rounds, T's are getting better guns. It's fucking mad, you know. It's like it's so hard. Like you say, Nuke and Inferno are the maps that have suffered the most. Like CT used to be able to lock those maps down. Now, if you get in an economic hole, you get fucking dumpstered. You get rolled. Like you're relying on pulling a fucking Deagle and a Dream out. Basically, it's fucking crazy. So yeah, I'd like to see somebody more qualified talk about that. But right now, I think it's not just 1 or 2 tweaks. We got real problems. It's made the game. You know, it has made the game a little bit insufferable for a lot of people as well. Reykjavik says, now that the CSGO official Twitter account has actually acknowledged Cadian's tournament-winning play, it actually did, yeah. Will Valve do anything to save the scene, or are they too busy replying to meme accounts? Listen, I say this all the time. When you talk about Valve, the monolith, you have to remember there are 2 guys within Valve, you know, Edo and Brian famously. They do give a shit, and they do reply to people, and they do make time, and they do talk, and they do love the game, and they do want it to be good. The problem you've got is there just isn't enough people at Valve to make a concerted push, and it just seems to me that it's never going to happen. I think, you know, the idea that you've seen one of the maddest clutches of all time and you do like 1 tweet about it, that should be a no-brainer for a CSGO account who should be wanting to push people towards esports, not mentioning it like just as a little bit aside. Everyone
and the idea you're only doing that in 2021.
I know. But, you know, meanwhile, like you're interacting with fucking no-name meme accounts and stuff. And fucking,
dude, you know how depressing that is now you think about it? Because I never really had thought about that before. Think about this. Go through the highlights in your mind of every great moment. Cold Zera, jumping AWP shot, simple 1v2, right? If Valve had actually promoted those properly on the CSGO account, those would have been viral around the world. I'm telling you right now. Because here's an instance where actually one company once got it right. A lot of people don't know this. It was actually E-League when I did the burn on Shaq. They had it up on their Twitter as a video something like 10 minutes later. And I tell you what, that video went fucking mental, mate. It was everywhere. And that's just because an enormous amount, like, we actually have been sort of like in a fucking bubble where even other people in esports wouldn't have been aware of some of the things. Mate, that were happening.
It was live during a fucking NBA match.
Yes,
you know, and then I think the clip went on Conan O'Brien. They absolutely
did it really? Holy shit!
I think it might have done. I know there was talk about us doing some crossover there that never materialized. But you have to understand they did that despite the fact Shaq did not like that.
I bet Conan didn't like being the second funniest ginger guy involved with his show.
Yeah. What do you know? But yeah, so I mean, like, yeah, you're right. You have to take those viral moments. So I don't know who runs that Twitter account, but when I see their daily interactions, it blows my mind because I'll say this: Slasher has a better handle on what's going to go viral on Twitter than the guy running Valve's Twitter account. There it is. Yeah. Listen, brother, you're going to have to. Sometimes the medicine don't taste nice. You know what I mean? That's just real talk. And so if Slasher was running that Valve account, like, he's
probably better.
Yeah, CSB massive again. So just saying. Anyway, Chingu, do you ever think it's possible for Inferno to become a bad map? I think they've pushed it to the fucking limit with these economic changes, like we were just talking about. Like, I think they really have. I think the idea of like CTs getting steamrolled on fucking Inferno never sits right with me. Never sits right with me. Impossible retakes never sits right with me. But to be fair, it's still always a map that will throw up great moments, you know.
It'll always be one of the best maps, I'm pretty sure. There's something about it where, again, the real problem with maps, it's why you can't just say, add another good map. No one really knows what makes the maps good, especially if it takes years to sort of develop the meta. But what's great about Inferno is somehow it just never ran out of, like, depth, and you can always still have multiple playing styles. Like, somehow about it just works. Like, it's funny that, obviously, the iconic map in Counterstrike is Dust 2, because if I could pick a map, if I could, like, retcon that, I'd rather it was Inferno, mate. Inferno is what Counterstrike is to me. It's why it's every great decider and fucking final map, etc. There's something about it just is what Counterstrike play in esports is about, is Inferno.
Yeah.
The dynamic of it, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's one of those just classic maps, you know. But like I say, yeah, they've definitely pushed it to breaking point, but I feel like about a few maps at the moment. Alice asks, just to satisfy my curiosity, what factors can you credit that contribute to forming great journalists such as yourselves, Declan Hill and others? Is it just through life experience, or is there something else that has made?
Oh, I think there's a good angle for this, by the way. We've definitely touched on it previously, but I know this is what I'd want to bring up with you. Who was it who said this originally? But basically, something you told me years ago, and it's so bang on. There has to be something wrong with you. There has to be something fundamentally wrong with your background, your personality, or your current life situation that makes nailing this bastard that's fucked over a player on a fucking video game deal important enough that you'll pursue it. Important enough that when a story occurs, you'll go and read some Californian bylaws to find out what an agency would be. Like, a normal person, even a journalist, doesn't do that. There's a reason why you won't even see people who are award-winning journalists like Jacob Wolf do those stories. Like, he's actually... I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's in context of this conversation. Too normal a person. He's just a journalist who he does his everyday stuff and he has his certain things he's into, but maybe he doesn't have an axe to grind there. So as mad as it sounds, you do have to be a bit fucked up. Like, it's why I always say one of the reasons I will pursue motherfuckers to the ends of the earth is from my own background. And guess what? I don't take being bullied well. I bully you back if you bully me. So some of that's built into it. Like, that's got nothing to do with the player in that scenario. It's me. It's whatever's going on with me.
Mean, I think, you know, like, just on a point, first of all, I wouldn't consider myself a great journalist, not by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly not fit to, you know, even rub shoulders with Declan Hill, even though he's very graciously said I am. You know, that's just objectively not true. But the you know, he's the same. Like, we talked about it off camera. You know, this is a guy who embedded himself in with like a fucking Southeast Asian / Chinese crime syndicate, knowing at any moment, if it ever got out that he was like secretly recording stuff or whatever, they're just gonna fucking kill him with a machete. Who does that? Who thinks like, yeah, you know, for fucking match fixing in football, but
Because, by the way, this is what people might not get about that. The payoff will never actually be worth that, by the way. Except for your internal validation. There will, like, for example, so he risked his life there. He doesn't, like, now be rich forever in his life or now never have to do... Look, like, essentially, the actual payoff
He's got a very comfortable job, and that's it.
Yes.
A very comfortable job, by the way, while still having to look over his shoulder for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
You know, and so... You know, this is what I don't get as well. I mean, like, listen, as I outlined at the start of the podcast, I understand why I inspire this universal hate, and I made my peace with being a despised person. You know,
same. Yeah, I was always outside of my entire life, so it's just normal for it to be like this for me. It's fair enough. I know I'll never get these waters. Yeah,
so you know, I made peace with it, and you think to yourself sometimes, you know, because you're human, and you'll have like a pity party, and you'll go, yeah, why don't people see the work that I'm doing? I just fuck them. If you're doing it for that, you shouldn't be doing the work at all, because no one will ever tell you good job. The reward has to be you stand back, the work's finished, and you watch the repercussions, the positive repercussions of your actions. That's what you do it for. And so, yeah, like you said, to have that in a time where everyone's about instant gratification, to be able to psychologically push yourself towards, it's not even deferred gratification, it's just the hate will stop. That's basically your reward. You know, that you'll be abused and despised and spat on and threatened and miserable for 6 months. Then you release it and then people go, yeah, he does do good work, doesn't he? Like, you know, I have to mentally go to the part where people say, oh, he does do good work, though, doesn't he? He's an arsehole on Twitter. And that's, just, you know, he's a garbage human being. Doesn't matter how many, I could be a volunteer fireman, saving babies in my spare time. I'm always a garbage human being. People will always think of me as a garbage human being. You don't know me as a human being. You judge me on a couple of tweets. You judge me on 280 characters. And you think I'm the mentally ill one. But I'll just live with that. I'll live with that to get villains and liars and thieves and robbers and sex predators and all the other people I've took down over the years so you can enjoy esports. It's all right. You don't have to fucking thank me. I hope you look back and fucking cringe in 5 to 6 years. But like you said, that doesn't affect me. I just have to live in the gauntlet. I have to run the gauntlet every day I wake up. So whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, you definitely have to have something wrong with you. I mean, in terms of the part of the question where you ask to see through the bullshit and lies, healthy cynicism is good. I think if you've ever been brought up around, like, I've always had a good radar for when someone's talking shit. And I understood very quickly when something's PR. I picked up very quickly on stuff like I read a lot about semiology and studied that and coded language and how people use certain things to make you feel a certain way, marketing, advertising practices. I'm always reading stuff in my spare time, so I have a better handle on it all. You know, I've just dedicated myself to this. And it don't get me wrong, massive waste of time in the grand scheme of things. Like when I'm dead, like this was for fuck all, really. But, you know, you make your corner of the world shine as brightly as you can. That's it. But, I mean, yeah, you got to be mentally ill. People always say, oh, Richard calls people mentally ill. What, you don't think I can acknowledge that? I must be fucking crazy. Of course I think that.
By the way, that's got to be one of the most pathetic conflations people do, where they go, he just calls everyone mentally ill. If you ever look at the actual comments that, like, we call him mentally ill, yeah, they're the most extreme mentally ill comments.
They are mentally ill. I mean, you know, you've got people like, say, who I just talked about there, literal delusions. And what do you want me to say? Like, he's imagining something that didn't happen. What, we got to pretend that's normal? I suppose we do. So, anyway, hope that answers the question. Rude Boy, is it moral to spend a life pursuing personal interests when there is so much wrong with the world which could be fixed? I think from a philosophical standpoint, even though I've just said to try and make your corner of the world shine as much as you can, I think the only thing you are obliged to do is to essentially live your life to the moral code that I think we can all agree with is good, to not harm other people, and to try and live a life that makes complete sense to you while upholding that value. I don't think you need to be fucking Superman on the weekends. You know, it's like always makes, you know, like them Amber Alerts, like what you telling me for? Okay, what am I going to do?
I know, exactly.
You know,
some child is missing in the California. Like,
all right,
I'll look out the window. Nah, they aren't there, mate. So yeah, I'm back to games now. Yeah. Valorant queuing up.
But like, obviously, if I had the opportunity, if I could, and the resources and could do stuff like that, yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to make a much more profound difference. But the reality is, you're not obliged to, and not everyone gets to. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you have to think about, you know, it's almost like an insane privileged position to even consider that you will have the power and the influence to be able to sort of impact on the world, even in a little way. You know, most people don't. And so, yeah, I think what you have to do is, you know, uphold the value of being good. Don't fuck anyone else over. Don't harm anybody else in your life. And then live the rest of your life with a set of values that you can be comfortable with, because one day you will cease to exist. And in your last moments, you will be thinking about all of that.
The big problem to me is like that phraseology has basically been used by every evil piece of shit cunt who ruined the world, that they were going to make it better or fix the world. So I'm like already like that characterization. I'd stay away from that. Like that's not even a goal you can go out there with. If you're talking about the idea of like addressing massive societal issues or something very the problem with it is basically it all starts at home anyway. This is why Jordan Peterson to me was such like a fucking perfect. It's like it's like literally, it's like the time called him forth, because in an era when the entire thing is like, let's none of us take any personal responsibility and only focus on the most enormous macro scale problems. My question would be this: have you fixed all the problems in your life? Now, you might not even know there are problems, but I'm sure there are small things in your life that makes the life of people around you not as good, not as productive as it could be. You could accomplish greater things on a small level. Well, here's the thing, mate. If we all did that, just took care of our own little square, the world would be fixed tomorrow. It wouldn't need it. Like, the genius of it is, it's like a revolution. A real revolution isn't when a bunch of people with guns get enough power that they can defeat the military and take... that's a military coup. A real revolution is this, is if, like, everyone woke up one day, it's like the fucking... It's like the classic kids movie, Ants. One day just woke up and realised, we don't have to do this. And then just that's it. The power's over and everyone's free. So to me, like, the best you could do is fix your own shit. Ask what Michael.
Look internally,
The real problem I have generally is like, I think the whole reason people pick enormous causes is exactly to distract themselves from what they could fix in their own life. Instead to go like it's even the reason we all know business people do it. The most scumbag, cynical business piece of shit ever then goes to a gala and gives some money to a children's orphanage and goes, right, that's my good deed done. It's like, mate, the good deed you could do is be more ethical in your business practices, cunt. Stop using factories in China or something, or don't fucking just like, the government doesn't say I have to do this, so I'll just be unethical. Like, that's how you could be a good guy. Forget the idea of like paying for an oil spill to be cleaned up. So yeah, I would just say, if you want to fix the world in general, fix yourself, mate.
Yeah, no,
it's a lifetime quest story. You're walking out of stuff to do.
Yeah, that is very true. And maybe don't tweet. Good advice.
That's good advice for everyone. And I say that as a serial tweeter who can't stop because I'm Cacoethes, motherfucker. I'm Cacoethes.
Dancer Master. I have to confess, I'm an Olaf Meister fan. My sympathies.
My God.
Joking, of course, legend. And with his last few games, I fell into the trap of hyping him up, and I was looking forward to him making a comeback. Do you think he can ever return? I think at this stage, I mean, look, I like Olaf, always have. He was definitely the 2015, best player. Definitely raised the bar. Definitely blazed the trail. Did all that great stuff. Him going out on a high at the end of his tenure. Nice little story. But again, reality unfortunately comes a knocking, and yeah, he's, if he still wants to play sound, I respect it. I thought there might even have been an opportunity for him to go to NIP. Maybe, there's still early days with that ZTR guy, but things seem to be on the up, so maybe not. But I don't know what he wants to do in terms of where he thinks he's at, performance wise. And so I would just give you the brutal answer, no. But if you're a massive fan, treasure the days he was good. He did things that 99.9% of players in this business never do, and was a great guy while doing it and a role model while doing it. So whatever.
One of the things about Olaf that people forget is that the whole reason FaZe had that standing period where they won the two events with like Croman and Exist, it was the other way around, respectively, is because Olaf, I've heard, was supposed to like temporarily step away and he was going to come back. I think they thought within like a month or two or something. Yeah, and somehow that just extended. I think it was like 5 or 6 months in the end. So the reason why I bring that up is because the reason why that happened has never been publicized. Even behind the scenes, I've already heard like vague allusions to something. And the fact that it was implied like his teammates thought he'd come back in a month or two and then he didn't, that makes me wonder, because he was never the same player after that. And that makes me wonder if like his like drive to want to be a top pro, I wonder if it ever survived that period. I know he did come back, and listen, everyone has to do a job, and I'm sure he made a very good living off playing, and even in this time and being on the bench and whatnot. But the problem I have is that, like, I don't really know if his heart is in being a top pro player. Because I've always said this, like, I'm not one of these people who thinks that you do ruin your legacy if you're bad at the end. I think you can play as long as you want, but I think you should only do it if you're really into it. Like, unless you're in, the only exception might be, I get it if you live in Ukraine or Russia and you're just never going to stop because you can get $9,000 a month now. Yeah, for that guy, mate, I would just treat it like it was a call center. It's the best call center in the world, isn't it? Like, I'd do it in that sense. But if you're anyone else, I'd say at this point, someone like Olof Meister, I'm pretty sure he can just play it if he wants to. And if he doesn't, he can definitely live a great life in Sweden and do whatever the fuck he wants. So I'd just say, unless he's really into it, nah, I think your time's really
streaming, streaming, coaching, desk work. I mean, you know, the world's his oyster if he wants. Like, and I've said it many times. You know, if he ever wants any pointers on any of that stuff or where to go next, like, he can reach out to me anytime. More than happy to help him because he was always a great lad. So, you know, there you go. But don't go. But I think I'm with you. I don't, you know, playing some mixed teams, have some fun, but accept it's the fun part of your career now, and look to graduate.
I actually low-key hope that what's going on in Denmark eventually becomes the trend. I hope that one day some version of Counterstrike is big enough that even the local broadcast is that popping that when you're the person who appears on it, so it could be in the future, maybe the Swedish broadcast in 10 years is like fucking Flusher, Heaton, and Olof Meister. Like, they're the equivalent of Alan Shearer and all the fuckers on, like, Match of the Day. That would be awesome. If those guys didn't even have to leave, so they could still have a family life, just live in their city, like Stockholm or whatever, but then they just do that show as like a side gig. That would be the dream for me. That would be a great way for all the legends to still make some money on the back end when everyone's making 10 times what they made, you know?
Yeah. I just wish all these companies that had the money wanted to make the kind of content. You know, that kind of content.
Yes.
You know, but they never do they? Right. We got like 3 more. Echo, I know you got 2, but I'm only going to do 1 just for time. It's been 3 hours. What is your favorite type of meat, and what is your favorite dish that includes it?
Ooh, because in general, I feel like my bias tends to be towards pork.
I don't eat pork. I just don't really eat that anymore. Bacon, obviously, I know is pork. I'm not an idiot, but I'll eat bacon for breakfast, but that's about it, really. Don't really eat sausages. I used to call them the silent killer. You know, we've all had bad barbecue.
That's one thing you must be liking about being back in England. You now have access to real sausages and bacon again. Those are 2 things you can't get elsewhere, can you?
Yeah. I remember first time I tried to explain it to an American, like, look at how our bacon doesn't shrink.
It's the shit, isn't it?
Yeah, look at this big, thick, it's almost like a gammon steak.
Yes.
No, but that's bacon for us. Like, that's our way of living over here. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I like the streaky, crispy, small, crunchy. I like it, right? But you cannot beat a big fucking rasher straight off the side of a pig. Boom. You know, so yeah, that was hard in America. There's loads of stuff. There's loads of stuff they do better, and there's loads of stuff that you know they do worse. But yeah, I definitely prefer British bacon as it is. So it's good to be back for that.
So
but yeah,
my dish for that is obvious. It's just pork. It's the Deji Galbi. It's pork Galbi, which is like I think it means like rib meat or something. So nice. Pork rib meat and Korean barbecue. It just tastes fucking amazing. It's just basically char grilled pork. I mean, it's not. By the way, spoiler: it's not supposed to be char grilled, but I don't give a fuck. I'm from England. So I would be doing it where the flames are coming on. They're going, whoa, 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 coming on. And I'm going, oh, yeah, bloody, oh, I love this shit. Like, I didn't give a fuck, mate. I was doing it all the time.
So for me, I don't know. I mean, I'm still a sucker for a steak. That's where
you can't really go wrong with a steak, can you?
Mate, that's where America kills it. Like, you know, wherever I lived, you get one of them.
Oh, I'd love to live in Texas or something, mate. That would be my dream.
Them giant fuck off tomahawk ribeyes that are as big as like your fucking leg.
The meat's going to be god takes. They're going to cook it in the oven as well. They're going to cook it on. What they're going to do, boys? This is are you ready? They're going to put it in the pan initially on both sides and make it just go brown. They're going to put it in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes, so it's cooked all the way through. When you cut it, it's going to have a tiny bit of pink, and the rest is going to be. Mate, those are the ones where if you don't just put salt in it and eat it raw, if you attempt to put a sauce near it, that should be a war crime. You should be out of the fucking country.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. Yeah,
that's one of the moments, by the way, I realised I was poor when I was growing up. Because first of all, Richard, I wasn't having ribeye. I was having like fucking
rump,
garbage, like that. So I used to not even think steak was good, and ketchup, burnt to fork, done. Like, I didn't even know anything about steak until I got some money, basically. It's until the day a guy suggested to me, maybe, sir, don't order this filet mignon to the hotel room, well done. And I was like, I'll give it a go, but you daft cunt. Like,
and then you're like, oh, my lord.
Oh, there's flavour in here. This is good. Sorry, it's not even that chewy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, basically, you've been eating fucking Trump steaks basically all your life, man. Anyway, thanks for that, mate. I'll pick up your other question next time. Two more. Rez Chi, having to sit in front of a monitor for a lot of your day can be stressing for that booty. Do you guys have
what? Why is it? Who's he? Like a fucking Dos Barrett OnlyFans subscriber or something like? It's got a great big ass.
That question from Al Pacino. It can be stressing for that booty. Do you guys have a favorite chair or something you use to support that behind and back? I mean, listen, this boy's been with me a long time. It's getting a bit like Fraser's dad's chair now. But it's a lazy boy reclining office chair. I think it was like, I don't know, 1,200 or something, whatever the fuck. It's fucking super comfy, super soft leather, nice wood. It's really good. You know, so you have to fork out on a chair. I don't like the gamer chairs, mate. I'll say that right now. I think they're a bit too rigid and inflexible. I don't like them for long periods of sitting. I actually think, I know they're meant to be ergonomic and that. Sometimes I don't need my back being nudged. Like, okay. Yeah, you know what I mean? Father Time will fucking sort me out with that, probably. But yeah, I like to just be able to sink into a fucking nice, soft, leather-bound chair.
See, actually, I'm the opposite. That's actually why I like the gamer chair, because basically for years and years I had just like a very simple office chair, you know, just a leather office chair. It wasn't expensive. This is when I was in the northeast of England. But the problem was, eventually I did get from being on the PC for so long. So I used to, it's not like I had back problems. Like it was like I couldn't walk or anything, but I would get like an ache if I sat for too long. And I noticed that when it would ache, I would actually exacerbate it by sort of trying to take the pressure off by like leaning back a bit like this and sort of like chilling down. And that was just making it so that I was just fucking other muscles up. And basically I had a guy who just told me, get one of those wedges and sit on it, right? And that actually fixed all the problems, because it was obviously putting my spine like in the proper position. So the reason I like the gamer chairs is I noticed I didn't need that seat cushion anymore. Basically, because they are rigid, if I just sit like this with my back against it, my spine is just straight the whole time. So to be fair, I also will say I try not to ever do what I used to do. I don't ever sit for like 10 hours in a row. Even if I do 10 hours of work, I take breaks between. I go for a walk.
Yeah, get up, have a walk.
That alone will pay dividends. But I also agree with Richard. Definitely spend money on the chair. Like, if of all the things in your setup that you're going to save money on, I'll tell you right now, the money you save on the chair, you will spend tenfold on back shit, fucking chiropractors, like maybe wheelchair shit one day. Like, you don't want that, mate. If you can, just try and have as good posture as you can. Because when we're walking out, we all have terrible posture anyway. So when you're gaming, you may as well at least have it set up. Similarly, by the way, another thing people probably overlook in the modern day setup, if you've got the money. One thing I only got for this apartment when I was moving is I've got one of those tables where it's like motorized and you can make it go up and down.
Yeah.
Dude, again, because I come from a poor place.
Game changer, right?
Whatever height it is. Being able to put that to the right height, that actually helped. Even though, you know, initially I had to sort of like get used to it. It's actually way better when you're at the proper height, you know, your eyes at the right level and all. It all does add up if you're going to be there for that many hours.
Yeah. Anyway, first Socks, last question. He says, is there a team people are slating to be straight fire when we return to land that you personally believe will flop? My answer to that is no. We covered this, I think, last week. You might have missed it. But basically, I'm of the opinion that anybody who thinks like Virtus Pro is going to flop at LAN, not having it. Anyone thinks like Heroic's going to flop at LAN, not having it. Anyone thinks Gambit's going to flop at LAN, not having it. They're the ones, all the ones that have emerged in the last 3 months are the ones people have questions about. Even Spirit, as I said, I think Spirit have dropped off.
They're the one I would bet against.
Yeah, that's what you said last time as well. So there you go. Right. Time to wrap it up. One final word just before we do all the reads. As I said, I don't know where the drama will go now. I don't know whether we've got another 5 or 6 videos going to come flying out about things we said and how dare we reply or what fan base will be stirred up. I'll just always say to my audience, my guys, you know, you don't show support for me by hating somebody else. Simple as that. So let's keep it all nice and normal, and let's hope everyone just moves on and gets on with the lives of what was probably, as I said, the all-time silliest drama I've ever found myself embroiled in. So anyway, with that said, shout out to the sponsor .com/RLS. Create an account over there and you can place bets on esports events in a safe, ethical environment, and obviously be 18, Plus and do it responsibly. And obviously our NordVPN sponsorship as well. NordVPN.com/RLS for 70% off of VPN. It really is a great product. Loads of positive feedback about it. And obviously our patrons, the people I apparently think are my only audience and everyone else is a leech. To the definitely not leeches. Our $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Benedict, Zarathenia, Cathal, Flacksmith, J Dubs, Hannah Maru Alice, Tobias Bernasconi, Carve, Marcus Kiumpar, and our $50 patrons, Dancer Master, Adam Ox, No5712, Judas, I can't get over that's there, Kylo, Rude Boy, Airhammer, Norwegian Clamai, Bacon, Goody Woody, Gern Kaya, Lonnie, First Sock, Echo, Res Chi, Miss Alcoholic, BP420, Watch Doge, Reykjavik on Steam, Manuel Stockley, Benakagi, Alexi, and Sod. So, wow, that was another bumper edition of By the Numbers. We'll see you next week, and until then, take care.